Okay, so we're live. So again, this is going to be a continuation for people watching of last week's stream. I'm joined this week again by Daniel. Daniel has his own YouTube channel, The Jesus Conversation. I recommend you guys subscribe. Daniel has some fantastic content when it comes to apologetics, the Bible, just anything Christianity related in terms of getting you guys set up, spiritually and in terms of whatever your needs might be. Daniel has you covered. Daniel also has a website as well called thechristawakening.com. I recommend you guys check out his website. Again, Daniel has some fantastic resources there that deal with all the same stuff that I just outlined that his channel addresses as well. So yeah, I just want to say, Daniel, it's a pleasure to have you as always. I'm glad you came today for a little bit to join us.
Thanks, Adam. The pleasure is mine, and keep doing the great work that you've been doing. I believe of late, God is blessing the streams, and you're having more impact now.
Yeah, it's been good. Like we've been having, as you've seen, Daniel, we've been very fortunate. We've been very blessed, especially for the last couple of streams, because we've had people come on. We've been able to have quite fruitful discussions, I feel. Maybe not specifically with the person we're talking to, but certainly in terms of the content we're pushing out to the wider web to have access to. And that's the most important thing, is for them to see, like, I'm going to bring this up. There was a comment that was left, and I thought that it was a very good comment that someone pointed out. Their comment now wasn't, I wouldn't say their comment was like a perfect representation of the streams and how the streams went, but I liked what they said because it is representative of a wider issue, especially with Mormonism, that I think Mormons are overlooking. And I there's an answer to it. There's a very quick answer to it, but I'm going to show you. I'm just going to quickly read out to you what the person said. Boom. So this is from the last stream that we did with the guy Omner. Okay. So what the guy said was, so this is coming from an LDS person now, Daniel, by the way. Yeah. Like, this is not coming from a Christian. This is coming from a Mormon.
Yeah.
Okay. He said, so the clean conclusion is this: Adam generally performed better as a debater. This is our last stream now, Daniel, that we had with Omner and the other guys. Adam generally performed better as a debater because he was more prepared and demanded evidence. Now, one of the things he pointed out in his comments was that Adam's strongest point is fair. If someone claims a Bible verse means something unusual, they should be able to support the reading with serious evidence rather than I have heard a scholar say or I just Google it. And he pointed out that I highlighted a very important issue, especially when they're coming on stream and they're trying to address their points, which is, as you noticed as well with the Omner guy. Well, what was the main thing I kept telling him throughout the stream, Daniel? Provide proof. Where's your evidence? Yeah. Where's your evidence? Provide proof. Because most of it was just him claiming stuff. There was no evidence. There was no proof. It's just like, fine, you can have your subjective view on what you think Scripture says, but that's not a convincing argument for me. It's if subjectivity is the standard, then we might as well be Muslim then, because Muslims feel convicted that for them certain Bible verses support the Quran when in fact they don't. Right? But that's a subjective takeaway. Okay. Yeah. And that's why I tell you, look, if you're going to give me that this is the position, outline it. Okay. Give us evidence that demonstrates that position is the way that verse / chapter / book should be interpreted. Okay. Because the reality of it is, and this is why I asked them for scholarship consistently, okay? And this is why I asked them for, especially in terms of the early church witness, I asked them for, okay, give me church fathers that support that. There's an important reason as to why I'm doing that. I'm trying to demonstrate to them that Joseph is just so far off the mark on almost every theological claim that he's making, that it's so outlandish, and it's such a deviation away from what the biblical data says, as well as what the early church data says in terms of how they interpreted these verses and chapters, that I can't sit there and affirm anything Joseph's saying. Because if Joseph was consistently interpreting things in a way that affirms the Bible and is consistent with the Bible, we would see that consistency match up on some level in the early church. Now, I'm not saying that the early church fathers were perfect, Daniel, on every single interpretation they had. That's not the point. But on the fundamentals of what they believe, you and I, Daniel, would totally agree with them 100%, pretty much on the fundamentals in terms of God as Trinity, the point of atonement, the point of redemption, Christ's mission and what that means for us, all that kind of stuff. They were all aligned on that. Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
And we would agree with them on that. But there's no alignment with their views on that, and then what Joseph comes along with in terms of God the Father once being a man, having a body of flesh and bones as tangible as any man's, as it says in Doctrine and Covenants 130, verse 22. Again, no early church support for that. Then you have this idea that our souls are eternal.
Hmm.
From again, you saw Umner try and argue that. And by the
Yeah.
way, just for those who don't know, and I did a little bit of research into this. I mean, they're LDS, they're LDS leaders, Daniel. When they speak of this, okay, they
Hmm.
speak of a pre-mortal existence that you and I had, okay, with God the Father at the time that He conceives us, okay,
Hmm.
as part of this celestial conception,
Okay.
okay. Now, the reality of it is there's no church father that believes that.
Hmm.
None. If you, Daniel, if and I argued this before, and it's a fair point. If Joseph had walked into the early church with that kind of stuff, I am almost certain, and when I say almost, I'm certain, but I'm saying this to be conservative, right? I try and be as
Yeah.
conservative as possible in what I say. I'm certain that if Joseph walked into the early church with those doctrines, they would have done to him the same thing they did to all the other heretics in the early church, like
Hmm.
Praxius,
Yeah.
okay, like Sabellius, okay,
Yeah.
like Nestorius, like
Hmm.
Arius, okay. These guys were very quickly identified as heretics, labeled as such, and then excommunicated if they did not take back what were essentially perversions of the gospel and them trying to preach a false gospel. Okay, there's
Hmm.
no tolerance for that in the church.
Yeah.
If you're going to go in around, and I like, the reality of it is that we're allowed to do this as a Christian body. Okay, if we identify someone within the church that's spreading a false gospel, and we give them the opportunity to repent of that, and they refuse to do so, they can't. I'm sorry, they cannot be a good standing member of the body of believers.
Hmm.
Okay, that's why in Romans 16, what does Paul say about people who come in to do that very thing? He says they have to be set, pushed aside and ignored.
Yeah.
Okay, we were not to sit there and engage and address with someone that's just there as a plant on
Hmm.
behalf of Satan to try and lead people away.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
and that's important. Anyway, I'll stop there for now. Do you have any thoughts you want to add, Daniel?
No, I think you summarized that pretty well. Just like the guy got stuck on the when we showed him the the scriptures where
Yeah,
that God created the body and the spirit as well, then
yeah,
that kicks out the idea of eternality.
yeah.
Uh, he quickly moved on from that. you know.
Because he fumbled. He said God created the spirit, and then he tried to very quickly recover that.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
he's understanding in some sense while he's talking the implication of what he's saying, because that is the logical conclusion.
Mhm.
And that's the consistent testimony within the early church as well. The only uncreated, unbegotten entity that exists is God.
That's
Okay,
right.
only God is unbegotten.
Hmm.
Okay, if you're talking about the created order, creation itself, everything within creation has a beginning. God does not have a beginning. That's what separates God from creation. Okay,
Hmm.
that's what absolutely nails the what's it called, the Mormon argument of us having eternal intelligence or whatever they want to call it.
Hmm.
Now, just by the way, I just want to point this out as well. This idea of them trying to say eternal intelligence is in fact what would you call it? It's not fully representative of even what their church leaders teach. Okay,
Hmm.
according to the church manuals of their church, we had a pre. This is the wording now, Daniel. This isn't pre-existent intelligence. This is something far stronger in terms of what's conceptualized here. According to their church leaders, what's taught in the church manuals is that we have a pre-immortal existence with God the Father.
Hmm.
Okay, so that means prior to us becoming human, becoming mortal, we had an existence that we shared with God the Father as his sons and daughters. That's what their church manual teaches.
Yeah.
That's not just saying pre sort of conceptual intelligence. Like he's trying to dumb it down to suggest, well, I can kind of make this work, and while also, while also supporting what the biblical data says. No, your church leaders were very clear on what they meant by this. Okay, and it doesn't work because, as I said, biblically it doesn't work, and as well as that, in terms of church tradition, it's absolutely a heretical, wayward viewpoint on what the scriptures say.
Hmm.
The other thing, and this is the thing I did in the meantime, and this is why I asked the guy when he came on stream to give me give me someone credible. Okay, now you remember he named his friend, and his friend was a nobody.
Hmm.
The thing is, and this is why I tell you guys to find someone who actually knows what they're talking about. I went through the liberty of checking the source that he gave, the one that we didn't let him go through because he hadn't read it himself.
Mhm.
Guess what, Daniel? Do you think it meant what he was going to try and make it mean, or do you think that when I read through it and I checked how that's supposed to be understood in context, that it lined up with what he was going to try and make it read? No,
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 of course not. Yeah.
no, because he was going to try and pull a quote from Tertullian, which was completely out of context. I mean, now I wish he came here today because I could have buried him on it.
Mhm.
Okay, and this is why I'm saying this is the lengths people have to go to. Sometimes they'll have to take what do you call that? They take a quote right out of context, and then they say, well, because he uses this term here, this means that the Mormon Church is true.
Oh.
Muslims do the same thing, Daniel. Because he says this word here, that means Islam is true.
Mhm.
That's not a logical, rational way of approaching something. Okay, that's complete eisegesis.
Yeah.
Exegesis is okay. The guy's talking about Tertullian. Okay, in what context is he talking about Tertullian? And that quote that's been taken from Tertullian, in what context is Tertullian saying what he's saying in that?
Mhm.
No, again, none of those questions do these people ask. They just take a quote out of context and say, well, because he used this term, it means the Mormon Church is true.
Right.
And if he had actually gone to a scholar and asked a scholar as opposed to asking a nobody, a scholar would have informed him that no, your nobody is completely incorrect here. That's not what that means. If you
Mhm.
had read it in context.
Yeah.
This is why I tell people to check their sources. I'm not saying it to belittle you guys. I'm saying it because I want you to engage in proper research. Because
Mhm.
if you engage in proper objective research, where you look at what the experts are saying, okay, you'll see a consistent pattern there, and the data will speak for itself.
Right.
Okay. Anyway, if he comes on, we can go through it with him. I don't even think the guy's going to bother to make the effort to go through it because look, Daniel, just for context here, this guy's been coming on my stream now for about 4 weeks, 5 weeks.
Oh, okay.
And every single week I ask him I even give him the sources to go and check, and he doesn't do it.
That's bad. Yeah.
You know, he comes back with what somebody else told him, and what the thing
Mhm.
is that somebody else is pretty much a nobody. So like I
Yeah.
can't take their word for anything. If you come back with three credible, top scholars are saying this, then we have something
Mhm.
we can look at together.
Yeah.
Okay, but the reason I ask him that, Daniel, is because I know it's not there. I know there's no top scholars supporting the Mormon Church or the Mormon position on this, because
Yeah.
the uniform opinion within scholarship is that the LDS faith, the LDS religion, and I don't mean this to be glib towards you guys. I'm just being honest in terms of where it ranks within scholarship. Immediately disregarded, Daniel. They don't care.
Mhm.
It's for them, it's a farcical text. That's why it doesn't receive the coverage that the Bible receives, because they don't believe the Book of Mormon is an ancient historical record. None of
Mhm.
them do. Okay? They don't believe the Book of Abraham is an accurate translation of ancient Egyptian papyri. Okay? None of them believe that. Okay?
Mhm.
And in terms of the what Joseph is claiming, what the Bible says exegetically, as well as what he's saying that would have been supported by the views of the early apostles, okay, and the early church, again, none of them are in agreement there.
Mhm.
And if you check your sources and you actually spend the effort, again, I say the same thing to Muslims to look to those sources and to actually read them and make the effort, you'll see very quickly your position
Mhm.
is essentially non-existent. But anyway, I'll stop there for a moment. Is there something you'd like to add?
Yeah, the very philosophy of that you're eternal is problematic because we're kind of equating ourselves with again God or Christ.
Yeah,
Because if you take John 1:1, in the beginning was God, and the Word was with God from the beginning. That would also apply to us if we take the Mormon ideology that in the beginning was God, and the sons of God were also with God, face to face with God. You know,
yeah,
doesn't make any sense. Then eternality would also need to be explained as to how we are, sinful and how we die,
yeah,
and how we change form. And if you
yeah,
are just like God and God is perfect, He doesn't change. That's what the Bible says. He doesn't
yeah,
need to change because He is perfect.
yeah,
Although He chose, again, some people might say, I know, how did Jesus die? How did Jesus become a man? It has a cause. It has a reason, right? He partook. That's what the Bible says. That
yeah,
Hebrews chapter 2. He did not take upon Himself this the seed of angels, or the, the lineage of angels, but he took upon himself flesh and blood. That was a voluntary act that he
Yeah,
did for the purpose of redemption. But that's not what you guys are talking about. The Mormons, they're talking about
no,
being like God, with God from the beginning, and
yeah,
that's problematic. And this person, Honor, that you're talking about, if he's been here for 4 weeks, then I mean, he's not, I don't know, he's not open enough, or I should say, rather humble enough to be able to submit to the truth and allow it to take him wherever it goes.
yeah,
So for him to discover truth, that would be the first step, to be really seeking after truth, then be humble enough and counting the cost, because that's what I did when, I was coming from a Hindu background.
yeah,
After I realized that, Christ could be God, then I decided to pursue it. I
yeah,
decided to speak to him, talk to him, and I gave a commitment that if you, in my prayer, I spoke to the Creator God, and I said, if you are going to reveal yourself to me, I will follow you no matter the cost. And
yeah,
I've done that. And he revealed himself, and I realized that he is the Christ, the one and only Redeemer and the true God as well.
yeah.
Um, so any person must take that commitment, and then that allows for God to speak to you easily and show you the light where you must go.
Yeah, yeah, well said. I mean, that's kind of again. I wish someone like Omner would receive it in that way, because as you pointed out, if someone's coming for weeks and you're pointing them in the direction of the sources, and they're clearly showing that they're not engaging with the sources, it
Hmm.
means in some sense, sadly, their heart is closed off to the truth. Because look, at the end of the day, it's like this is what I'm trying to get Mormons to understand. In the same vein, I'm trying to get Muslims to understand. Okay, if the data simply does not support your position on any level, okay, what you have to, in some sense, at least make the effort to wrestle with the implication of that reality.
Hmm.
Okay, if you're refusing to wrestle with the implication of, like, as I said, God the Father once being a man, no church father ever preaching that.
Yeah.
Okay, us being eternal, premortal, existent beings as the sons and daughters of Heavenly Father in this pre-existent, premortal state eternally, Daniel,
Yeah.
not being supported by any church fathers. Again, you guys are going to turn the blinders on and not act as if that's a concerning theology when no one was preaching that before Joseph.
Hmm.
Okay. Then you have the fact that your book claims to be an ancient historical record. Okay. The Bible is affirmed. I don't have to make this argument, but the Bible is affirmed within scholarship as an ancient historical record. There's no disagreement there. Book of Mormon completely disregarded as a 19th century product by scholarship based on the data.
Hmm.
Okay. Even Dan McLennan, which is one of their guys from BYU, admits that.
Mm.
Okay. So there's that. And then you have the fact that the Book of Abraham within scholarship, again, it's supposed to be an accurate translation. It's supposed to be a faithful translation, okay?
Hmm.
It's supposed to represent what that information says that it's translating, yet it gets it wrong,
Yeah.
okay? So, like, if you're going to sit there, like, again, let me just take the Book of Abraham point for a second. The idea here is that Joseph miraculously translated something accurately, which couldn't be translated because there was no means to translate that language at his time. And then later, when we can finally translate that same language, we see that he's wrong in his translation based on the facsimiles that he provided, as well as his translation methods.
Hmm.
The reality of it is if he was right, okay, translators would be in agreement with him. It's as simple as that, Daniel. If he was right, they would be
Yeah.
in agreement with him.
Right.
Okay. The fact that they're all unanimously in disagreement with him means he was wrong. His
Hmm.
translation is incorrect. It's not accurate. And if it's not accurate and it's incorrect, and it's clearly a demonstration of charlatanry, okay, since the guy was a convicted con man, because he'd
Hmm.
gone to trial before in America because of crystal ball gazing and stuff like that, where he was engaged in
Yeah.
this con man like activity.
Hmm.
Uh, this was part of who he was. He did stuff like this. He tried to con and dupe people to get money. Okay, it was part of his personality, and you guys are just going to look past all of that, as well as the clear data that's there, and still support the guy and try and do apologetics for a guy. For it, when within scholarship, it's all laughable. Okay, and I'm not saying again, Daniel. I'm not saying that to disrespect it. I'm just saying that's the stance of scholarship. The Book of Abraham is laughed off within scholarship. Okay, the Book of Mormon is laughed off within scholarship. Joseph Smith is laughed off within scholarship. It's not taken seriously, and that's based on the evidence. That's based on the data. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
and if you guys can't accept the implication of that, then there's something seriously disturbing going on there. Okay, because look, at least with, and I've argued this before, at least with the Quran, even though the Quran is easily disproven, it's still far enough back in the past that it can kind of get away with a level of mystery because it comes from a certain time period. Okay,
Yeah.
whereas it's a genuine old text. Okay, it's a genuine, very old text. The Book of Mormon doesn't have that privilege. It's a modern text.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, guys, you have to wrestle with the implications of what we're saying. Don't just do, sadly, what people like Omna are doing, which is you're pointing out to them time and time again the clear implications of why their religion is incorrect based on the evidence, and they're just like turning the blinders on. They don't want to look at it. No. I'm going to try and find something to prove it. I'm going to try and find something to prove it. If you have to try that desperately and you continuously can't find what you're looking for, and it's that difficult for you to find it, again, there's your first clue. There's your first clue. Anyway, I'll stop there for now. Is there anything you'd like to add, Dan?
No, I would agree with you. Religion has like a blinding power. Sometimes people are really brainwashed, or they just don't want to get out of it. There could be many reasons for that. Even if somebody is pointing truth, there could be communal bondings, things like that really prevent people from coming to it. But having said all that, with the wealth of information, because there is a saying that Islam dies by the internet. If you have heard online, it's true for anything else. There is a plethora of information available online. You can access libraries online, and you can do your own research. People in past, like at least 50 years back, if somebody had to really gather this information, it would be painstaking. They would have to travel continents and get all that. But now we can get it. And therefore, we would have no excuse. Any person, if they want to claim a continuity with the biblical message and it contradicts, you have a problem there. Islam contradicts and Mormonism contradicts as well. Mormonism contradicts big time. At least Islam tries to, mask things and things like that. But Mormonism has a massive problem.
Yeah. Hold on now. I have a fly on my screen. Anyway, let's go through this because you brought up this verse. This is Philippians 2.
Yeah.
Again, this is referred to, verses 5-9 is referred to as the Carmen Christi, or the Christ hymn, essentially. Ehrman actually kind of talks about this in his book, Jesus, an Apocalyptic Prophet of the New Millennium. And within that, he mentions that this is regarded as probably one of the earliest church hymns that was formulated, dating to probably the early 40s AD. So we're talking about within 10 years of the crucifixion. This was already a formulated, again, theologically loaded, formulated church hymn. But it's very beautiful because it highlights what is essentially a very clear understanding, a very clear Christology that the followers of Jesus held to. Again, doesn't support the Mormon viewpoint here, because prior to, again, it talks about the incarnation of Christ, okay, and again, the whole point of this, okay, is to demonstrate the necessity, right, why Christ's incarnation was necessitated. That's what this is talking about, and it's one of the questions I ask Mormons, okay, like, why was Christ's incarnation necessitated? And then say, well, it was to redeem mankind. There you go. That's the answer. Okay, what you say that God the Father needs to have a physical body. On what basis is that necessitated? And then the reason changes. It becomes something that, well, to do it, he needs to do that to experience the fullness of life. Like that, it's something like that. But where does it say that?
Yeah.
Where is that outlined? Okay, because that's not what the theology is here. The theology is that Christ humbles himself, takes the form of servant, being made in the likeness of men, becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross, okay? And the purpose behind this is what? For the atonement of the sins of the world. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay? Because the issue of sin reigns in the flesh, okay? For Christ to take dominion over that very issue, he has to enter into flesh itself and sanctify it by his perfect obedience. Okay? And that's what it is. That's what the atonement is all about. Okay? But the reality of it is that if you start adding these other justifications as to why the incarnation needs to happen, and then pushing that back to other gods, which you guys seemingly believe in because you believe in infinite regression, which is that there's an infinite number of gods that even precludes or goes prior, or that precedes God the Father. Okay, that's a very troubling theology.
Yeah.
And I don't see any basis for it. That's why I brought up the verse in Isaiah as well, There was no God formed before me, neither shall there be after me. I'm the first and last. Besides me, there is no Savior. And then in 44:8, besides me, there's no other Elohim.
Yep.
Okay? And that's very clear because it's outlined not just there, it's outlined throughout Isaiah. You also have it in Psalm, is it 96:5, I think, around there, where God says that, the gods of the people are just idols. They're worthless idols. The term idolatry in the context of what God defines in Scripture, because this is something that comes up even within the history itself. Like, I think of the example of Ahab and Elijah. Okay, you talk about them having a false god in Baal, right? And then Elijah worships the true God, and then they do the test, okay, to demonstrate which God is true and which isn't. Baal proves to be what, Daniel? He proves to be a false god who has no existence. He's just a figment of their imagination. Okay, but the true God, the God of Israel, is able to manifest himself because he actually exists.
Yeah.
Again, that's the difference between an idol and the one true God. And that's why, for example, in Jeremiah chapter 10, you have that emphatic verse where it says, if your gods did not create the heavens and the earth, they shall perish from beneath the heavens and the earth.
Right. Yeah.
Because they're perishable. Perishable is because they were created. And they weren't created by themselves. They were created by men, by the minds of men, the figments of men's imagination. Okay, that's the testimony of what idolatry is. Okay, and that's very clearly laid out. Again, how does that support the Mormon position? I don't know. What are your thoughts, Daniel?
It doesn't. It's very difficult to say that I believe in the Bible as well as I want to believe in the Mormon stand, in a Mormon doctrine. They are contradictory. The other idea about becoming equal with God, that's something really funny. Do they have maybe I'm wrong on this, do they have any doctrine of becoming God, or is that the Eastern Orthodox? Maybe I'm getting confused.
So in the context of Mormonism, the idea of this infinite progression, Daniel, is that you will become infinitely more godlike. Okay, this is the reward you receive in the afterlife, right? Pending the type of life that you lived. So you will become your own God, equal to God. Okay, because by nature you're still God. This is the thing that precedes here, Daniel. Okay, the thing that's preceding all of this is that by nature you're truly God. They don't believe in a human nature in the sense that we believe that.
Yeah. So it sounds like Hinduism actually. Hinduism believes that we are gods as well. That we are one with God. We are the same thing with God. There are sayings like Sivoham or Aham Brahmasmi, meaning I am the creator, or I don't know it. I'm living in ignorance, but I and he are one. Like I am him, he is me. So they lead into delusions. Those kind of ideologies. Then in Hinduism, again, God is a man as well, in the sense, they take birth, they die. And not only that, then they're subject to lustful tendencies. So you will see a lot of similarities where, like overlap within these things.
Yeah, and I part of it has to do with, this is what it's all an extension of. It's an extension of the fact that Joseph Smith just didn't understand basic Christian doctrine. That's what it is. Okay? If he had understood it, okay, he wouldn't have taken issue with it.
Yeah.
Okay? The fact that he doesn't understand it, and then we know that because even when he talks about it and writes about it, like what's found in the King Follett Discourse, he misdefines it. He misdefines the Trinity. There's some suggestion by some people, I'm not saying this is true, but some people have suggested that when Joseph thought of Trinity, he thought that the Trinity was modalism, that
Oh.
he understood it modalistically.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, some people have put forward this idea, okay, and because he was confused by that, it's like he then develops his own doctrine, which for him solves the issue. But it's like, and I've pointed this out before, just because something's difficult to understand, right, or difficult to grapple with, doesn't mean that it's not true. You know, that's funny because that's the Muslim argument. Those Muslim arguments, because God is simple to understand, therefore our doctrine is better than yours. that's literally their interpretation when it comes to Tawhid, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's funny because whenever they talk about the Trinity, they don't understand what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Because they misdefine what person means. They misdefine what substance or being means.
Yeah.
They conflate the two. They get them mixed up. Sometimes they start talking as if we believe in modalism or something else, or tritheism. Like, they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
They're talking out of ignorance. And it's frustrating to watch, especially those people that do that, the Dawa guys, when they're talking out of ignorance, because you're saying this is our position, but you've no idea what we believe, and it's identified by the fact that you're completely misdefining our own belief system here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Right.
but they feel okay in doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I would be much more appreciative if they just sat there and said, "Look, we don't understand it, we don't get it."
Mm-hmm.
You know, explain it to us, and then they actually listen, as opposed to laughing it off. Because when they laugh it off, if you ask them, "Well, repeat back to me what I said," like, explain to me what my belief is, they can't explain it. Meaning
Yeah.
they were never listening to begin with.
Right.
Because in their head, what is it, Daniel? It's pre-decided, right? It's just, I'm only going to believe in Tawhid, and anything other than Tawhid, I'm not going to listen to. I'm going to pretend like I'm listening, but my only intention here is to regurgitate back to you Tawhid. That's the only intention I have in this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with Mormons as well. They just want to regurgitate back to you Joseph Smith's understanding, even though Joseph Smith's understanding is complete, as I said, bogus. And by the way, I think that even on a if you're talking on like a physics level, okay, if you're talking about the structure of the universe, okay, as being, let's say, operated by, okay, the laws of physics, okay, if you're talking about time and space, okay, and then you're talking about a creator, okay, within if, like, what I'm trying to say here is, if you look at the complexity of the universe itself, okay, for something to create something that complex, it would have to transcend it, okay, in every way. That's it. It would have to not be bound by the laws of space and time, okay. And this is where we get the idea that when we say eternal, right, and when we're referring to God, we're referring to something that operates outside of space and time. That's what makes God infinitely powerful, you know, infinitely capable in terms of who he is, okay? Because he transcends space-time, okay? If he's the creator of all those things, that makes sense, okay? But then the Mormon understanding that you're talking about an eternal plane where you have these eternal gods that are just what was the phrase that they used? They were organizing pre-existent matter, okay? That there's no cosmology, you know, there's no I would say cosmology today that would support that position, outside of maybe one or two theories that suggest that the universe might be eternal. But even that's not the dominant position within physics. Okay, the dominant position within physics, just so people know, for those who've actually bothered to check the data on this, among physicists, is that the universe, it did come into existence at a specific moment in time as a consequence of this specific cosmological activity that was taking place, okay, 13.7 billion years ago, where everything was condensed within a single point, okay, called a singularity. And then there was this thing called quantum fluctuations, which led to certain particles colliding with each other, which then led to the expansion of the universe. Okay, that's the most dominant theory currently. But that does not support the Mormon position of Mormon creationism. Mormon creationism goes something like this, Daniel. There's been eternally gods in existence that have been eternally organizing eternal matter across eternity. That's the Mormon position. I can't find a cosmology that supports that.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah.
And I think the logical conclusion is, and I think you would agree with me on this, Daniel, is if you're talking about a plane of existence as complex as the universe, right, which is what, a 5-dimensional plane, okay, that's confined by, okay, the laws of physics, okay, and it's determined by the laws of physics, okay. Something that would create that would have to be more complex than the thing itself, okay, meaning
Yeah.
you would have to operate outside of those confines, okay.
Hmm.
So that means it would have to transcend space-time, okay. That would be for me the logical conclusion. But again, I don't see a cosmological argument for the Mormon take there either. But I don't know what your thoughts are, Daniel.
No, I fully agree with that, Adam. Nothing more to add on that specific point. But we can talk about maybe polygamy and things like that,
Yeah,
because
I what's funny about that though. Like they, so biblically speaking, right? If we talk about, let's say, the New Testament, okay, and like the early church fathers,
Mhm.
there's nothing wrong with getting married, okay? I don't want to give that impression either, okay? There's nothing inherently wrong with that. That is an institution that under God is completely fine, okay? The New Testament supports that. But there is a sense within the New Testament, and you might disagree with me on this, Daniel, but
Mhm.
there is a sense within the New Testament where there's a higher level of obedience that stems from complete devotion to God, where you essentially uh, you take away certain distraction. Now, this is how it's phrased in some sense. It's like when Paul talks about it, it's like when he says it's better not to marry, he gives the justification, which is that if you marry, you're going to have certain responsibilities that will take you away from your main responsibility to God through different activities that you'll have to engage with your spouse and your children. If you don't do that, then you can have total and complete focus on God, right, all the time. Okay. And there's a sense whereby it's like, okay, that is a call for those who are able to handle it in some sense. But it's better to marry than for you to sit there and burn in lust as well, because that would cause you to fall into sin. So there is a justification here where, under the right circumstance, which is God's providence, right, where God is the overseer of that marriage, then it's acceptable. But then at the same time, in the same token, it's like, okay, but if you weren't to marry and you were to completely focus on God, okay, and kind of in some sense deprive yourself of certain luxuries that you could enjoy, but you're not enjoying because you want to give God the total and complete focus, that in and of itself brings with it kind of a greater level of devotion to God than what the other one would, in some sense. And the reason for that, as it's outlined by people like Ehrman, is that because Jesus was an apocalyptic Jew, so Jesus's belief, and this is from Ehrman's standpoint, by the way. It's not. This is. I'm
Mhm.
not saying this is my position,
Yeah.
but Paul and Jesus actually share that in common. Their theology was supposed to be quite apocalyptic, and in Jewish apocalypticism, marriage was viewed negatively in the sense of, since God's kingdom is coming soon, there's no requirement or need to marry anymore. Focus solely on the coming kingdom and doing everything you can to be ready for God and His imminent second coming, right? Which is the eschatological judgment. Set yourself focus wise completely on that, and forget about everything else. Focus on doing the works of God in the world without any of the distractions the world has to offer. And that was kind of viewed as like the higher calling that you could go to if you were really, really devoted in that sense. Anyway, that's just one kind of way of looking at it. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Daniel.
Yeah, from a human perspective and experience, I could agree that that may allow people to focus more. But from the divine perspective, I don't think that is the design or the idea of God, because the very first thing God did was make a helper or make a mate for Adam. And when you look at the other picture, Christ and the church denotes the union of two people. So I believe that's the perfect ideal of God, that people get married and raise children. His eternal command stands, multiply and fill the earth. So that's what I think, and that vocation is more difficult because getting married and then raising children is not an easy job. It's one of the highest responsibilities, and yeah, it just comes with its own challenges as well. uh,
Yeah.
the idea that Of course, we don't expect Jesus to marry and procreate crossbreeds in that sense,
Yeah,
hybrids, whatever. Uh, and yeah, you correctly said that there was a sense of urgency. So Paul's messages, all this, you will see these phrases again and again. The last times, the end times. So his focus when he was writing the epistles was that people sold in Jerusalem because they knew that the city is going to be destroyed. That was one of the financially best decisions the people in Jerusalem made, because they sold at the highest prices the things that were going to be completely destroyed and demolished. So
yeah,
that's where it gets lost in translation. The letters are written for the church, for the edification, exhortation, comfort, and all those things, but it is not written to the church, meaning the learnings are applicable, but there is an immediate contextual application as well. So I believe, that when that is misunderstood and taken to the other extreme, people can uh, go to the ideas that marriage is not good and all that. But
yeah,
my personal understanding and experience is that that is the divine will of God from the beginning.
yeah,
If Christ and his bride was in the mind of God from the beginning, so that ideal exists and holds forever, is what I think.
yeah, yeah. No, no, I agree with you. I think that from the perspective of, let's say, the early church leaders, um, the focus was more so on, okay, if I'm the example, hypothetically to others, I want to show the highest form of devotion I can show, which is where my entire time and focus is only on God and on nothing else. And that's represented obviously externally through the good deeds that I do, to reflect God in the world around me. So often, for example, in the early churches, most of the bishops didn't marry. That was a common practice in the early church. It's not saying that they weren't allowed to. They were absolutely allowed to if they wanted
Mhm.
to. They just chose not to. It was a choice thing. Same with Paul. Paul chose not to marry.
Mhm.
Okay, he could have. He chose not to. Um, so in the context of devotion, there is a sense where it's like, okay, if I focus my entire time and energy on God, and that's representative, or that's represented, sorry, that's represented. I'm mixing up my words now. That's represented in the life that I live, right, through the good deeds that I do for the purpose of reflecting God on a daily basis. Um, that's a higher level of devotion, to God than if I indulge in certain things that God. So what I'm saying is, yes, it's like there's these things that you're allowed to do that God is permissible in God's eyes. Okay, and in even certain contexts, as you argued, Daniel, again, God may be commanding in certain situations a certain code of practice. Um, but Paul is kind of arguing that there's a higher devotion where it's like the focus is just on God, but that's a vocation that's not for everyone, as Paul argues. Okay, even Jesus argues that when he talks about the eunuchs. Okay, he makes a similar argument. It's not a vocation for everybody. So there's nothing inherently or intrinsically wrong with marrying. It's just in terms of the type of devotion that you can live out, in a marriage versus not being in a marriage. Okay, and that's kind of the things that they're talking about. And then Ehrman's point is more so that because they were apocalyptic, that understanding within Jewish apocalypticism stemmed from the fact that they believed that the kingdom of God was at hand. Therefore, it wasn't necessitated to marry anymore. The focus should be just getting ready for God because he's coming back to reclaim his bride. Okay, as you pointed out,
Mhm.
there is there is in the Old Testament an interesting, argument that could be made, in relation to the situation with. And again, this is, by the way, this is kind of very deep theological stuff. Um, and I know people have different positions on this, so I'm not arguing with anybody's position on this. But in the context of the Old Testament, when you talk about the situation with Adam and Eve, if the first children that Adam and Eve, this is an argument that's presented sometimes, even within, scholarship, is that if the argument is that Adam and Eve, their first children were, Cain and Abel, which I think is the common position most people hold to, that they didn't have any children prior to Cain and Abel. It's unusual that God gives them this command, as Daniel pointed out, to procreate, right, to be fruitful and multiply. Yet they don't become fruitful and multiply until they're sinful. So there's a suggestion there. This isn't, by the way, this isn't every single exegetical commentary on this. This is what some have suggested as a way of trying to understand God's foreshadowing of the command that he gave. That command, in some sense, was not really meant for the moment that Adam and Eve initially existed in a state of innocence. It was more so for the purpose of driving humanity forward when humanity became sinful, because sinfulness brought with it death, and humanity needed to continue forward, because if they didn't continue forward, they would have died in their sins. It's the fact that they continue forward through this command that God has given that allows for Christ to come into, the world and then redeem man of its sins. Because if man does, look, at the end of the day, if they don't procreate, Daniel, there's no way Christ can come into existence and do what he does. Okay, so procreation was absolutely necessitated. But then the question becomes, what was the real kind of intention behind that command to begin with? Because it's interesting how when they were in a state of innocence, the Bible doesn't mention that they had any children. Okay, it's not until they become sinful and they become mortal, then all of a sudden they have children, which is strange. It's strange that that's represented there. Now, as I said, there's different views as to why that is, why it's outlined in that way, and it's still kind of a mystery as to what's the grand kind of meaning behind that. Or it could also be then just people are reading too far into it as well. There's also that aspect as well. It's like there is an element of mystery there. But anyway, that's just kind of what some people have kind of suggested on that. But as you pointed out, yeah, it's totally, marriage is totally, it's a good thing. God does allow for it. It is permissible. And it does bring with it, as Daniel pointed out quite well, it does bring with it responsibilities that are very important, because you have an obligation then to represent God, not just to the world around you, but also intrinsically within the home, right? Because you have to be that way with your wife, and then you also have to be that way with your child. Because look, if you're a godly man, Daniel, but you raise your kid in such a way that you are responsible in some sense for them turning away from God, okay, you're going to be held responsible for that. It doesn't matter how godly you were outside of that relationship with your child, okay? Yeah. If you weren't godly within the relationship, that specific relationship, when that was a responsibility that was God-given, that's going to have consequences. Okay, and that happens. It happens even in the world today, Daniel. There's some really well-known what would be regarded as kind of like, let's say, church leaders that are looked up to, whether they be pastors or whoever, and then they have a very bad relationship with their kids, and they are in some sense responsible for the kids not following God. That's going to have consequences. Okay, now what the consequences for that is, I don't know. But as Daniel pointed out, there's your responsibility right there. You really have a huge responsibility on your shoulders if you're going to take that responsibility that God has given you to have a family, and to, as Paul argues in Ephesians 5, when it comes to your wife, love her as your own body, and love her as Christ loves the church. It's like, yeah, that's a huge responsibility, Daniel. That's not just something you get into because you're like, well, God's given me this thing that I can enjoy. I'm going to enjoy it, but I'm going to forget about the responsibility aspect. That's a vocation you have to live up to too,
Yeah, definitely. Also we need to be aware of that. There are a lot of ideologies creeping in. Even the early church was influenced a lot. Within the first 3 centuries, you have people like Plato. I don't know if you know about the Platonic ideology. There is actually, I don't know if I have it here. There's a book. It actually explains. Yeah, I can't find it. It explains how Platonic ideologies came into the church and it started to influence. And the issue is that whatever lens we put on, it is possible to interpret the text with that biased kind of a format.
Yeah.
So it's always, both of us can look at the same verse and come to varied interpretations. So that depends on where we are coming from again.
It's kind of like with Calvinists, for example, Daniel. Like when Calvinists look at scripture, they look for predestination in almost every verse, even when it's not there. They'll try and find a way of arguing for predestination out of almost anything.
Yeah, yeah. So, like when we interpret the scriptures, it is possible to look from humanistic ideology and impose that interpretation on the scripture.
Yeah,
Then we can otherwise try to come from the God's perspective and then try to see what it is coming from. So to do that, we have to go back to the beginning, like from the first principles. There is also a
yeah,
principle of first mention and things like that. So when we try to go and look at from the first principle interpretation, that would be most often more accurate. Otherwise it's like reading back into it something else.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing you have to be careful of. I brought up what's it called, Isaiah 6, what's it called, 29:16 here.
Mhm.
Because this is a verse. It's funny when they tell me, well, we're we carry the same nature as God. Yet it's like, have you guys even read what the Bible says? Shall the
Mhm.
potter be considered as the clay? That the thing which say of its maker, he did not make me, or the thing formed say of him who formed it, he has no understanding. So when you're made, you're created, right?
Yeah.
So in essence here, we were created by God. Okay. Now Isaiah, this is the thing, right? These verses and these chapters have to be taken in conjunction with all the verses and chapters, because Isaiah outlines very clearly his understanding of God, which is that God is the eternal creator, but we
Mhm.
are created. We're a byproduct of God's direct creation, as creative influence.
Right.
Um, and that's why this is why not just Isaiah, but throughout the scriptures, Daniel, all these authors make very clear what separates God from us. Okay,
Hmm.
the thing that separates God from us is that God is the eternal creator who created everything, and we are God's creation. We were created by God.
Yeah.
Okay, by God for God. Okay,
Hmm.
which is, by the way, what Colossians basically argues, is that since everything was created through Christ, everything in some sense is subject to Christ because he is the prototokos.
Hmm.
Okay? He is the
Yeah.
firstborn over all of creation. He's the inheritor of everything. Since everything was created through him, therefore everything is for him.
Hmm.
Okay? And it's the same sort of theme. But again, that doesn't support the Mormon understanding here.
Yeah. So just on that, even as I said, Hinduism also has similar overlaps. So if we were with God, before coming into this world, and
Yeah.
I don't know, do they say that it's a conscious state of being with God? What is our state before, like
So
pre-existence?
this is the thing, Daniel, right? So what again, Omner didn't define it, okay? Omner used this very loose term, if you remember. We pre-existed as some internal intelligence. Okay? That's what Omner said. But when I went and I checked what their church leaders had said on this, and what the
Hmm.
church manuals of the LDS church said on this, okay?
Yeah.
This is how it's defined. We had a pre-mortal existence. This is the way. Now you can take from this whatever you want to take from this, Daniel. Right? We had a pre-mortal existence with Heavenly Father as sons and daughters of His.
Okay.
So
So my
I don't
question
know how
would
you
be,
take that.
well, I'm gonna have to take it the same thing, like in Hinduism, there is a concept of reincarnation. So I normally ask people, do you remember what you were in your past life? And they, 99.99 wouldn't know what that was. And then that defeats the purpose of, having multiple incarnations. The idea is that they say that in next life, I may gain salvation. Next life, I may get better. Next life, I can correct my actions. But if you don't remember your past life, how will you impact your future life that's coming next? And a similar ideology here would be my question to the Mormon would be, if you
Wait,
were
Daniel.
existing,
Someone's refuting you, Daniel.
okay,
So this is the verse on the genealogy.
yes,
This is the verse that Mormons now believe means that we have the nature of God.
wow,
Daniel, you've been debunked.
wow, thank you. I've been corrected.
I just laugh at that, Daniel, because I've never heard, only Mormon, it would take a Mormon to argue that, right? That the genealogies, which are solely about identifying Jesus as the true Son of God, are actually about us having a divine nature equal to that of the nature of God.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It would only take a Mormon to argue that. It's
Wow.
like my reply on Holy Warrior, without being sarcastic here, is go read a critical Greek commentary on that and then get back to us. Anyway, sorry, Daniel, carry on.
Yeah. So my question to Mormon would be: do you remember what you were doing before you came to the earth? If you're telling me that you pre-existed and you were with God, you had some sort of existence with God, what do you remember of that period? Because the direct parallel is in the book of Job, when Job accuses God, like he holds strong in the beginning, but as pressure comes on, then he gives in. He started accusing God of being unrighteous and all that, and at the end, God has a face to face, with Job, and he posed a series of questions. Were you there at the beginning when I, created things? And then he talks about power. Will the dragon listen to you? Can you control a bull and things like that? So those same questions will be applicable to every Mormon who hold this ideology that they are equal with God, or that they were pre-existent with God.
Yeah.
So were you there when God was creating the earth? Provide some evidence. What are your memories? How did God do it? Which side were you standing? Were you on the right side of God, left side of God? What were you doing when God was creating things?
Yeah. No. That's something they have to answer and they have to address. And then also, as I said, I mean, it's not supported biblically, and nor is it supported within ancient church tradition. None of the early church fathers held to this view. Oh, here you go, Daniel.
Mhm. Awesome. I would like to hear more about that. What did you do in creation?
Yeah, I'd love to know. Like, what? Tell us what you were doing. Give us an outline of how it all happened and how it worked. Um, I'm assuming they think maybe that the dreams that they have when they're dreaming, those are
Mhm.
actual memories, Daniel, of their pre-existent mortal state,
Mhm.
their pre-mortal state, rather.
Yeah, so I was talking about the Hindu concept of reincarnation, right? So I said 99.99 people will not say that I know what I was in my past life, but there are certain people that will say yes. And those people, there are examples that they can go back to a particular place, they can tell the name of the person that existed, house number, everything, and they claim that they are that person that lived, maybe 100 years ago or 50, 60, whatever it is. Those cases have been associated with demonic spirits called familiar spirits. So familiar spirits work in kind of colonial kind of or territorial kind of environment where they interact with people. They know different people. They know about the past lives, like people who died before them,
Yeah.
and those spirits come and attach themselves to these guys, and they give them that identity, saying that, oh, look, you were this. So I would say any person that is hallucinating that you were with God or you participated with God, it's an extension of demonic influence.
Well, Daniel, you've been refuted again. Unholy Warrior has brought up 1 Corinthians 15:45. So when it talks about the first Adam and the
Mhm.
last Adam, the first Adam, since he's according to him, he's a firstborn son. That completely debunks your point.
Wow.
I mean, what I don't understand is like Mormons are just not able to understand context. It would seem
Okay.
because
Hold on. I think his point here is the word made.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's still like what the point is we're in 1 Corinthians 15:45. Paul is talking about if you bother to read a Greek critical commentary, which none of you guys do, you just go off what your church leaders say. You know that what Paul is actually talking about there is an archetype. Okay, when he talks about the first Adam and the last Adam, he's talking about archetypes. Okay, and how one is essentially the corrector of the first one, which was the one that failed. That's the context. Like when you talk about the first Adam and the last Adam, in what context, right? What did the first Adam do versus what did the last Adam do? It's not to say that he's the second coming of Adam. That's not the point. The point is that Adam had a responsibility to be obedient to God, and he failed. Okay, which led to what? It led to the introduction of sin, corruption, all those things. Well, here's the thing on Holy Warrior.
Uh,
If my doctrine is weak, right? Why is my doctrine supported by every critical commentary that we have available to us today? Why is your comment or your doctrine not supported? Anyway, let me finish the point. The purpose of the second Adam, which was Christ, was to set right everything the first Adam did wrong. Okay, this is how it's even identified within the early church when they talk about it. If you bother to read the church fathers, that's how they distinguish between these two examples. Right, one was an example of disobedience, the other was an example of correction through obedience. Right, Christ corrected what Adam failed to do. Okay, which is what led to the introduction of sin, and by living obediently as the second Adam did, which was Christ, archetypically speaking, he has now rectified the issue of sin and death. Okay, and offered mankind eternal life through his obedience, okay, through the sanctification that brings for us as humanity. Sorry, Danny, you wanted to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah. Can you put the same verse, 1 Corinthians 15:45 from the KJV? And I would like to request the unholy warrior not to give the unholy interpretations, because the issue is, as I previously
sorry, Danny, so you want me to do? Sorry, say it again. Which verses would you like?
The same. He's quoting 15:45 from the KJV.
15:45. And you want the KJV?
Yeah, I'm just using the KJV because it gives us the ability to see where translators added things into it without what you call masking it. Other translations mask it.
You can see that, yeah?
Yeah, but the Bible Gateway is not showing the actual rendering the way it is printed. If you allow me to share my screen, probably.
Yeah, if you bring up there, Daniel, I'll let you share.
Yeah, just give me a moment.
I'm assuming what the Bible Gateway is doing, it's probably showing a more updated, corrected version, is it?
No, it's just not doing the regular, like the way it is in the printed ones. It's not showing, because I knew by intuition that
no, that's what I mean. That's what I mean is that Bible Gateway sometimes will add to a text its own edits to make it more kind of readable for someone who's reading it, to the detriment of what you said, what's actually printed in the actual copy of the KJV.
Yes, yeah. So it's not a faithful representation there on the screen. So if you look at it here, what I have.
Sorry, Dan, I need to remove mine.
Yeah.
Okay, let me add that. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So
Danny, just point out to people just so they know before you're about to read it. So this is what's in the printed copy of the KJV. So anyone picks up a printed version, this is what it says, right?
That's right. And it doesn't have to be KJV. You can go to the Greek and it will be the same, because what I'm trying to show you here is where this says Adam, the second Adam, the last Adam was made a quickening spirit. The word made doesn't exist. It is just telling you that Jesus, the last Adam, is a quickening spirit. The way you see it italicized, this means this was added by the translators to make more sense of the Greek text. So unholy warrior, if I have to read it from the literal Greek, it states, the first man, Adam, was made a living soul. The last Adam, a quickening spirit. It is just telling you the nature of the last Adam, who is the quickening spirit. Jesus did not become a life-giving. Again, quickening just means a life-producing or a life-giving spirit.
Well, he's also arguing. Wait, Daniel, he's also arguing this as well. Tell us how a child was punished for sin before he was born. They seem to think, right, and this is where your whole church is easy to debunk on Holy Warrior. They seem to think that we believe that Adam was born in a sinful state. That's not what we believe. Okay, we believe that Adam was born in a state of sinlessness. He had not committed sin, okay, when he was created, okay? Same applies to Eve. Sin enters into the world when they decided to go against God's word, and that's what corrupted the flesh, okay? That's what happened, okay? They weren't born in that state. They chose that state for themselves through their own free will, separate from God. Okay, and that's what led to their separation from God, which is the thing that Christ had to rectify, okay, through his obedience, okay? So, again, you guys don't understand our theology. Either that or he's just trolling, because, I mean, he's like, if you're going to say your doctrine is weak, and yet you can't demonstrate from any of the texts that your point is true or coherently represent that. And then obviously, I point out commentaries as well, Daniel. None of the commentaries will support his position or his understanding of this text. I mean, there you go.
Unholy warrior
whose doctrine is weak then?
Is running.
I always win. Okay.
No, he says, I got to go back. You guys were not
Yeah.
worthy.
Yeah. Okay.
That's sick, man.
That's
Because,
just the definition of we showed you where you were wrong, and you don't want to prove that, you don't want to prove your point because I asked you for, actual credible sources that interpret those verses in the same way that you are, and then all of a sudden you have to magically go back to work.
yeah. Can you put the comment about the child again? I want to show the hypocrisy of the human mind, not just
Yeah.
Mormons, but
Oh,
people
we
want
actually have a
to.
guest as well, Daniel.
Yeah, let me quickly comment on this.
Yeah, yeah,
People
no,
want
bring
to
him up.
blame God for everything. That's what we were talking about, the responsibility of marriage. If a parent was in debt and he begets a child in the debt,
Yeah.
the child faces the consequence, but you're blaming God. The parents made some choices in this aspect. You're not saying that the parent is not uh, sinless or things like that. Another example could be of a sickness. If somebody might have, maybe the lady has an HIV, when the
Yeah.
child is born it will get affected. That's a natural consequence of how things are working out. You taking that and blaming God, saying God made that man sick or that
Yeah.
God made that man poor and in debt, is it doesn't make sense. It's wrong, totally wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
that's all
bring
I have.
on Tyler and see what Tyler has to say. Are you there, Tyler?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay? Does my voice sound all right?
Yeah, I can hear you. What is it? How are you doing, man?
I don't know what. Oh, good. How are you guys doing? How are things going?
Well, you were working late, were you?
I'm still actually at work. It's only 4:20 here. I usually get off around 5, but I got most of my stuff done, so I jumped on for a minute. It's possible I may have to go at a moment's
No,
notice, but I
look,
should be good for
that's
a minute.
fine, man. We're probably only gonna be on for another 20, 30 minutes anyway because
Oh,
we
okay.
started.
Cool. I'm glad I
We
caught you then.
started. Yeah, we started a little later than usual. Like normally we would start about 2 hours ago, but I had something, so we had to start 2 hours later than usual. So it's close to bedtime where we are.
Uh-huh.
But
You guys are
anyway,
like
go
7 ahead of
ahead.
me. Is it 10 there or 11?
It's 20 past 10.
Okay, so you're 6 ahead. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm on Central Time. Um so couple things. I don't know what the discussion before was about, but maybe we can jump into a couple
Tyler,
things for fun.
take it
Sure.
one thing at a time. Let's take it one thing at a time.
Sure.
Okay, so what's the first thing?
The first thing was what you just said about natural consequences. I would make an argument that you're both right and wrong in what you said. Is it David? I forgot your name.
Daniel.
Daniel, sorry. I would say that you're correct we don't believe that sin comes with a child when they're born, but they're born in a fallen world, so they're going to sin, so they need Christ regardless. But we don't believe that there's any sin before birth. We do actually believe, like you guys, that Adam and Eve were without sin in the Garden of Eden, but we don't believe that they were capable of sin until after they ate the fruit. So even Adam and Eve's eating of the fruit, they were in a state of innocence, so they didn't really have knowledge yet. And so they wouldn't really have sinned, but they fell or transgressed the laws that God had put, so they fell into a sinful or fallen state afterwards. Does that make sense? And I know that's a whole other topic we could talk about. And then the second thing that I was going to say,
let me respond to that quickly before we lose track.
Take it one thing
well,
at a time.
I'm the reason I'm going to finish is because it has to do with the same thing. It's just the other thing you said. So
Okay.
the other thing you said, well, there's consequence. It's not God's fault that like AIDS or some sort of herpes or some disease transfers to the child. We wouldn't say that that's God's fault, because we believe a different understanding of creation than most Christians do. I would actually say that in your theology, it is God's fault, because
No, you can't, Tyler. Hold on, Tyler. You can't say that because we don't believe that. So if you're going to represent our theology, be very careful in how you identify it. Like, let me hold on, Tyler.
Let me finish the idea. Why?
Tyler, hold on.
Then
hold on.
Well, you're not going to be attacking
Tyler,
the right
hold
thing.
on. Give me a second, Tyler. Right? If you're going to claim that, and this is the same thing I argue with you, Omner, and every single one of you guys that come on and make these general claims, provide me with 5 scholars, okay, 5 theological, biblical scholars that identify that issue in the way that you've just identified.
I'm not using scholars. I'm using logic.
There's no, yeah, but how
I
can
think
you
he's
say that if
wrong.
you're a non-Christian? You're not from, our side. You're from your own side, your own religion with your own viewpoints, okay? I can
I
make
know,
the
but
same general,
it's,
hold on, Tyler. I can make the
you
same
go all out.
generalization.
I was just going to try to
I
finish the
can
idea so you
make the
understand what I'm
same
talking about.
generalizations about the LDS Church. So that's not going to work, okay? So be careful in how you phrase
Right,
things,
and
okay?
I
Because
don't want
I'll
to be
start,
told
hold
what I
on.
believe
I
either.
can start
But I'm
making
presenting it
generalizations
so that
about
you
the
can.
relations. Hold on. I can start making generalizations about the relations that God the Father celestially had with Heavenly Mother in order to produce celestial offspring, if you want to go down that route, okay? So be careful in how you phrase things, okay? Because we can make those kind of
I want you
generalizations.
to attack it. I want you to attack
There's
it.
no,
What
you're no, I'm not attacking a position that's not ours. So reform your position first, because that's not our position.
I was trying to finish it. So what I'm trying to say is
No,
that
but you no,
you're
but
playing
are
from-
you correcting yourself that that's not our position first? Because it's not.
I'm saying that we as LDS would think that the Christians would have to
But
hold
it's
this
not. Yeah, but I
position.
don't have. No, we don't. Says who?
I know
Your
you
church?
don't. I don't. I'm doing an internal critique. I'm saying
From
so,
the LDS perspective. Hold on. From the LDS perspective, you're doing an internal critique. It's not based on evidence or scholarship, right?
Okay, I'll do it a different way. I'll ask you
Yeah.
questions then. I'll ask you questions. That way we can establish what you believe instead of me telling you. But the reason I was doing it is to have you then address what I was going to say. That's the whole point. I'm not trying to
Yeah, but you're
say,
no. Hold on. I know what you're doing. Okay. What you
Okay.
were trying to do was you were trying to set up a specific parameters or a specific box you wanted Daniel and I to go inside and say, this is your position, therefore this is the conclusion of that. That's not how it
Yes.
works because you misunderstood our position to begin with. So you're putting
And-
us into a false box we can't fall into. Okay.
but
Would you
but
like us
I'm
to
doing
hold
that so
on,
that you can refute
Tyler,
it. I'm doing
if
it
you
so
want,
you can
you can
present your
ask us,
idea.
Tyler, if you want, you can ask us what our position is and we can tell you. Okay. Versus you
Okay.
trying to summarize in your own mind what you think our position is.
All right, I'll do
Even though
this
you
then.
don't know.
I'll say it this way. I'm not sure why you're so bothered by that because I'm not trying to push my beliefs on you or anything. What I'm trying to say is that if I believe that if I believed that God created everything and has perfect foreknowledge, then if I know that sin, or I should say that's not sin, but that consequence is coming to that child, and I could prevent it because I'm God and I'm all powerful, then if I don't prevent it, then God would be culpable, or it would be his fault because he created the parameters for that to happen.
No, he didn't. That's where you're wrong. He didn't create those parameters. This is the thing. This is the thing you're getting wrong. Okay.
What
Secondly,
part's wrong about that?
Hold on. There's two issues here, right? The first issue, right, is that your God also has the capability to intervene and doesn't. Okay, so don't act like that's not the case in your religion either.
He actually doesn't.
Hold on, Tyler. The same applies to you.
Okay, but Adam, you're doing the same thing you're saying I did to you. We don't believe that
exactly.
he has the capability.
But see, this. If you want to take this approach, I'll take this approach with you. Okay. So this is what I'm saying, right? Your God also has the capability to intervene and chooses not to. Okay,
no, he doesn't.
Okay? And he has foreknowledge as well, right? Because he knows all things also, even within your theology. Okay, so it doesn't work.
To a degree, there's a debate about
hold
that.
Hold on, Tyler.
So
the second.
We should do one thing at a time.
Tyler. The other issue here is that the parameters that you're referring to are a consequence of man's choices, not God's choices. So
but did he not foresee that?
Hold on. The analogy that I use, it had nothing to do with foreknowledge here, right? It has
Adam,
to do with the fact
created
that
you, though.
But he created me with free will.
He
so
did,
should he? Hold on. What would you rather, Tyler? Would you rather him create robots?
No, I would rather that.
That's the only alternative, Tyler. There's no rather. It's either robots or free will. Those are your two choices. Those are your two parameters, Tyler.
That's right, and I would.
You'd rather robots.
Your theology is robots and not free will. That's my point.
No, I'm not a Calvinist.
Okay, but then how can you explain
him? But Tyler,
knowing...
I'm not a Calvinist. You know that, right?
I believe. I didn't know for sure. No, you did tell me. I think the other day that you weren't. So,
yeah, I told you I'm not a Calvinist. So why are you again? See, this is why I had to have
a conversation
with you.
Because
it's not logical. It's logical if I'm a Calvinist to assume that, but I'm not a Calvinist. So that's not
instead of telling me what you don't believe, explain to me how we have free will if God created us in every aspect of our being, every bit of the earth and what it was created for, and he knows all the future, and he still put everybody into the place that created that future. How did he not have responsibility for that?
Because he didn't make the choice that man made. He gave man free will to choose him or not to choose him. Man chose not to choose him. Okay? But hold on. If God intervenes in the way that you're talking about in relation to that decision, then he takes away man's agency. And therefore he creates robots. That's the missing thing that you're losing out on here, that you're not understanding. Okay. Now, if I was hold on, Tyler, I will admit this, okay? If
Okay.
I was a Calvinist, you'd have a point, but I'm not a Calvinist. Okay, so your argument doesn't work with me, okay, because that's not my perspective. My
Okay.
perspective is simply this, okay? As I argued, and as Daniel continues to argue, right? God created us with agency, okay? If God intervenes at every bad choice that we make, okay, then we no longer have agency. Then it's God making the choices for us,
Correct.
okay? And we don't believe that. Okay, we believe that the things that happen are a consequence of our choices, regardless of God's foreknowledge, right? Even if I was to apply a human perspective here to this, okay, and I'll give you an example, right? Now, I don't like to do this because God transcends, for me, time and space, which you guys don't believe, but that's a separate argument, okay? So to apply onto God something creaturely for me is a little bit obtuse, okay? But I'm just going to do it for the purpose of making it more understandable for you, okay? If I have a kid, okay, and I tell my kid, dude, don't do that. Don't do that. It's going to end badly for you. And they choose to do it regardless of what I'm telling them. How am I to blame for the fact that they did it? Okay.
Well, it's
I could have.
not,
Hold on. I could
not
have.
a fair comparison to God. You didn't create the environment and everything that has to do with it. You didn't even create humanity.
But the environment was created for the purpose of man to be obedient and to glorify God. It wasn't created for the alternative to that. Man
why
chose
did he
the
allow
alternative
Satan
to that and changed. Man changed the parameters, right, through man's own choices, irrespective of what God had willed and what God wanted.
Look,
that's the whole point.
I have no desire to try to trap you or catch you. I promise. Like this isn't.
But your argument, Tyler, your argument isn't working.
It's a thought. It's a
your
thought.
Your argument works only if I'm a Calvinist, Tyler. It works only if I'm a Calvinist. Okay, I'm not a Calvinist.
I disagree.
So you're imposing.
I disagree because God has created all the situation for every single thing.
Hold on. All right, let me 1 second. I'm just going to bury the argument now, Tyler. Give me one church father who believed that we eternally existed as pre-mortal entities. You don't, Tyler. You don't have it.
Question.
No, it is. It's a very important question, right? Because if this was a theology that the apostles believed, do you believe the apostles believe that?
I'm not even trying to answer whether there was pre-existence
did you believe? Hold on, Tyler. Did you believe that the apostles believed your theology here in relation to this pre-existence that we eternally existed?
Yes, but Adam and
hold on. I'm going to walk with you now, Tyler. Okay, so Tyler believes that the apostles believed that we eternally existed. Okay, in a pre-mortal state. Give me the church fathers, the early church fathers, the apostolic fathers who affirm that position.
The Old Testament affirms that there was Elohim and sons of God before.
So the Old Testament says which okay, hold on.
Michael Heiser, who I've been rereading after talking to you again.
Hold on.
Makes it very clear
1 second. My question.
Beings.
Hold on, Tyler. You ignored my question. My question wasn't about the Old Testament. I said which church fathers believed it. Okay, if you want to go solely by Tyler, if you want to go solely by the Old Testament, then you have an issue because if you want to get rid of the New Testament because you don't review it as authoritative,
why ask me about the church fathers? You don't believe in them.
Well, who said I don't believe in them?
You don't. They're not scripture.
I didn't say they're not scripture, but I said they have a level of authority when it comes to understanding basic biblical exegesis as far as the New Testament is concerned. If John the Apostle taught directly,
it doesn't matter if you don't believe that they're not authoritative. In other words, if they weren't apostles, they had. Who said I didn't think? Who didn't? Joseph Smith has more authority than they do. Hold on,
no, they don't, because I don't believe Joseph Smith has any authority.
You don't believe the fathers did either.
I do believe they have a level of authority.
Were they apostles? Did they write scripture?
They were apostles.
They wrote scripture?
Hold on. When you say what you're talking about here in terms of apostleship, okay, and early church teaching and early church tradition, okay, there's a consistent. How would you say this? Let's talk about the apostolic age of the church, right?
I think there's knowledge to be gained there, but
Tyler, let me finish the point. Let me finish the point. When I talk about the apostolic age of the church, what am I talking about?
That depends on which scholar you are, which person you are.
Oh my gosh.
Be when the actual apostles are there. And then some will say there's like apostles after apostles, but we actually only have records of 3 of them being called. It's Matthias, Paul, and Barnabas, which they were replaced to a point, and then there was no replacement.
Tyler, when we talk about the apostolic fathers of the church, who are we referring to? It's a simple question.
If you're going to ask me what the apostolic age is, it's when the actual apostles. I'm asking you Paul and Matthias are alive.
Tyler, I'm asking you
how there is no apostle.
Tyler, I'm asking you how.
I answered your question.
You didn't
answer my question. I just answered your question.
You didn't answer my question, Tyler. You didn't
answer my question. It ended with the apostles.
No, hold on. If we're talking about the apostolic age and the apostolic fathers of the church, okay, who are we referring to from a scholarship standpoint. I don't care about your definition. How is it defined within scholarship?
Those scholars are not my prophets.
Do you want me to tell you, or do you want
Those
to keep
scholars
stuttering your
are
way
not
to a
my
false
prophets,
answer?
and they're not
Tyler,
your
do you want to keep
prophets.
stuttering your way to a false answer, or do you want me to educate you?
Adam, they're not my prophets. They're not your
I'm
prophets.
not. I don't. What do you mean your prophets? We don't care
They're not
about
your
church
apostles.
leaders.
They're not my apostles.
Say, 1 second. What on earth are you talking about? Not my apostles, their apostles. What on earth are you talking about?
Are they an authority to you?
Hold on. They are an authority to me insofar that they
ones?
have a level of value in their exegesis and the traditions that they hold to within the context of the early church, because they're consistent with what the Bible says. Okay, so to me, they hold a level of authority.
That's a supposition.
That's not a supposition.
No,
That's
they
based
have
on
the connectivity.
that's based on reading their writings, Tyler. If you bother to read their writings, which you clearly haven't.
I have read some.
Okay,
of their
name
writings.
them. Name the apostolic fathers.
But they're less. They're way down on the list of importance to me. From
Don't. One second. Daniel, don't let him weasel his way out of it. Daniel, don't.
On the same point.
Daniel, don't let him weasel his way out of it. Give us the names of the apostolic fathers.
Yes.
You weaseled your way out of the question.
No, Tyler, you're trying to deflect. Name them. Tyler, name them. Can you not name them? Tyler, can you not name them?
We can either still understand each other and have a conversation.
Tyler, don't try and make an emotional argument because you have no names here. Name the apostolic fathers.
Adam, I don't care.
I didn't ask for my name. I asked for the names of the church fathers. If you know any of them, the apostolic fathers.
I would rather hear your opinion than theirs.
Tyler, can you give us names? Yes or no? If you don't, I can educate you.
Polycarp, Irenaeus, Tertullian.
Yeah, that's not an apostolic. Irenaeus Clement, is not an apostolic father.
Clement. That's what I'm saying. Like that.
You just named Irenaeus. Irenaeus is not an apostolic father. I said apostolic fathers.
The apostolic people that I care about are the 12 apostles. After that, I have no idea if they're authoritative or not, because we have no record of whether they were actual.
We have their writings, Tyler, so we can see how authoritative they are based on whether they line up with scripture or not. And guess what? They line up with scripture.
That's your opinion.
No, that's based on reading the writings and comparing it to what scripture says versus comparing it with what your false church leaders say.
Adam, Bible scholars and all these
Tyler,
churches have argued about
when
this
we
for
look at what your
centuries
church leaders
to try
say,
to say that,
okay,
I can
Tyler,
read one of...
Tyler,
Okay.
when we look at what your church leaders say, we can see it's a clear deviation and false in relation to what the Bible says, okay, what the biblical data says. That's not my opinion. It's based on what I've read.
That's why I'm having this discussion with you. I know you have that opinion.
Prove to me then this doctrine of God the Father once being a man being supported within Scripture and by the apostolic fathers of the church. Prove it.
I'll do it with just one scripture, but then you'll.
No, I want the apostolic fathers. I want the apostolic fathers affirming it.
Why do you like them so much? Why do you care about?
Now can I tell you? And will you not interrupt me?
What about all the apocrypha? What about Thomas?
Tyler, will you let me talk? Will you let me explain to you, Tyler, or will I have to mute you? Are you gonna let me explain, or am I gonna have to mute you? It's your choice.
Go ahead. I'm waiting.
Okay. When we talk about the apostolic fathers, this is why they carry a level of authority for me. Okay, I don't care about your theology. Your theology means squat to me. Okay, I'm telling you the reason as to why they're important to me. They're important to me from a biblical exegetical standpoint because their tuition came directly from the apostles themselves. So when we speak of Polycarp, okay, when we speak of Ignatius of Antioch, they were students of John the Apostle. None of your false church leaders knew the apostles or walked with the apostles, okay? These men did, and they received their teachings directly from them, and it's reflected in their writings because their writings line up and match what the gospel authors say.
Scripture?
Hold on, Tyler, you said you wouldn't interrupt me, and now you're interrupting me. Okay, their writings reflect consistently what's taught in the New Testament. If you had bothered to read their writings, you would actually see that. If you'd read the letters of Ignatius, if you'd read what Clement of Alexandria wrote, okay? If you read what Polycarp wrote, if you read what Justin Martyr wrote, okay? If you read what Barnabas wrote, right? You would see consistently that their teachings line up with what the biblical data says. None of their teachings line up or affirm any of what your false teachers have said almost 2,000 years later. Okay, they're a complete 180 degree contradiction from each other. And this is my dilemma. This is my issue when I look at your church leaders and what traditionally was taught within the church consistent with what the Bible taught. Because as I said, these men received their tuition directly from the apostles. None of your leaders who came 2,000 years knew the apostles or knew Jesus or saw any of them or had any encounter with them. They're just claiming stuff, presuppositionalism at its finest, and there's no proof for their arguments, okay? You're just believing it because you were indoctrinated within the church, regardless of what the evidence says.
Your the apostolic fathers, how do you know they have authority? Just because they were tuition, just because they were underneath the other apostles? How do you know they didn't deviate?
Will I explain to you again?
The whole New Testament is literally letters from Paul trying to correct the churches that he had.
It's not just from
him and
Paul.
others
That's
had
not
formed.
just the New Testament. There's other letters there as well, and you have.
I said the letters. I said the letters in the New Testament.
you
many
said
of them
the New
are
Testament.
correcting. Are many of them correcting the church?
Which church?
The Church of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but he's correcting specific churches, right? But where is he correct? Yeah, but he's not correcting the apostolic fathers in that.
That's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is
So
that
what's
there's
the
already
point
a
you're making?
problem. There's already a problem where the apostles have to step in and correct things. In fact, there was even a council where, Paul.
Yeah, and even the
Peter and those were
apostolic
disagreeing
fathers go
about the
around
circumcision.
correcting. Even the apostolic fathers go around correcting a deviation from what was already there in the New Testament canon because
Right,
they're
and
aligned with it. And this is the part you didn't hear. I just
You're
told
right.
you, if you read Tyler, if you read their writings, you'd see that the apostolic fathers are aligned with what the gospel authors wrote because their tuition and teaching came directly from the apostles. None of your false church leaders received their tuition from the apostles.
First off, there have been many people in our church that have done very scholarly works about the fathers and some of the things they believed and how they.
Who?
You can
You can
has
Google.
tons of them.
I can Google. That's a great argument.
Bro, I don't have. Do you want to have a discussion?
Oh, Daniel, I can Google. It's such a fantastic argument for me.
I thought
Can you share my
kind of
screen?
wanted to have.
Yeah,
I thought you kind of wanted to have like discussion about theology and like have it.
Yeah, if you have evidence, I'd love to look at it.
You're constantly just wanting like lists of a thing. It's called an appeal to authority fallacy.
No, it's called, are you prepared and do you know what on earth you're talking about? That's what it's called. If you don't,
I do from my perspective. I do.
But your perspective isn't rooted in evidence. It's rooted in your subjective reading.
For everything we've talked about, there's scholarship from our church on those type of things, but I do not have it all memorized. And the question is, it's like, that's why I tried to engage on some of the things that we could logically.
So you accept, okay, 1 second. So before we move on, you concede, okay, at least, that the church fathers that I'm referring to, that they did align themselves with the teachings that they received directly from the apostles, yes or no?
I'm sorry, 1 moment. Just hang on 1 second.
Thank God. Daniel, it's not complicated. Like, Daniel, you've looked at some of the epistles they read, or they wrote, right? These apostolic fathers. Their teachings line up with what the New Testament authors are writing.
Absolutely. That's what I'm showing in the slides as well. Then I have a question for Tyler.
And Daniel, the point that I'm trying to get across, and he's not hearing it, is that they received their traditions, their teachings, their instructions directly from the apostles. None of their church leaders did, who came almost 2,000 years later, Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
Would you take the word of some random American man 2,000 years later, almost 2,000 years later, or would you take the words of the apostles and their students who are reflecting perfectly what the apostles taught because that's where their instructions and teachings came from? That's the argument, Daniel.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's just not getting in here. So when he asked me, why do I view them as authoritative? I don't view them authoritative in the same vein that I view the Bible, but I do view them as carrying a level of authority because they're consistent with what the Bible says.
Of course.
Sorry.
Yeah. So Tyler, I have a question here.
Yes, please.
See, since we're talking about reliability and authoritativeness, just on your screen, what I have is, then I have a question for you, just based on this.
Yes.
We have the lineage, or we have the connection from Jesus until the first council of Laodicea. And then if you look at the screen, everything is verifiable. All these church fathers, we have the lineage of John, from John right up to Hippolytus. And we have the written books. Then you could also track Paul's lineage. You have all these people, and so many books written by these people. Now, these people can reliably and, authentically claim the connection going back to Paul, and everything is interconnected through different church fathers and teachers. Now, coming to Joseph Smith, could you show us any kind of a lineage going back and connecting to any person, any connectivity?
Yeah, I want to know an apostle that they knew directly.
You're asking me for a lineage from the life of
Jesus, from Joseph Smith back to one of the apostles that he walked with. Can you give us names?
Because the people we are talking about, we can reliably, faithfully trace them back to the apostles and Jesus himself.
Yeah. So are you guys Greek Orthodox or are you Catholic?
Oh my gosh.
This doesn't have to do with any of that.
It does.
This is how they have to argue, right? It's because if you argue from a logical position, in their head, it means you have to be this. It's
Yeah,
like,
if-
no,
don't
it's not
understand.
that. Tyler, we're evidence-based Christians. How about that?
if you guys were Greek Orthodox or Catholic, then I would take this argument as valid that you
I'm-
possibly could claim.
I
an
can't make an
authoritative-
evidence-based
authoritative.
argument without being a Catholic or a Greek Orthodox. That's seriously your argument. That's a pathetic argument.
Because
Tyler.
somewhere along the way you believe that there was a broken chain. Was there not?
Where have I said that?
No.
No.
Okay, so you're
when have I
saying that
said
you have a broken chain to your church from this point forward?
No, Tyler. The
Then
whole
what do you
point
have?
here.
Tell me
the
what
whole
you have
po-
that I don't.
All right. What we have is consistently what the church has taught across history, right? Preserved.
That's not answering the question.
Hence why we have it today, Tyler, across history, across the centuries, and across all the different church leaders that existed from the apostolic age up until the present day. The only deviation I see away from that, okay, is Islam, Mormonism, Jehovah's Witnesses, and every other sect and cult which came out of whatever nonsense some false
So you're
prophet
saying
came
all
along.
Protestants are wrong because they protested.
Wait, what are you talking about? Did you not
Are
hear
all
what I just
Protestant
said?
churches wrong?
Tyler, did you not hear what I said? Will I repeat my argument again?
Yeah,
And maybe
say
you'll get it
again.
the second time if I say it? Okay.
Yeah, say it again.
The teachings that we have today and that we hold to today, we only have them because they were preserved from the early church. Daniel just presented with you a chain of lineage. Hold on, Tyler. I'm not finished the point yet.
So you
Daniel
believe the
just-
same thing.
Tyler, I'm not finished yet, right? Daniel just displayed to you on screen a clear lineage, right, that demonstrates how these teachings were preserved across history, okay?
That's
I don't
crazy.
believe
That's
in a
exactly what
break
the
that you're
Pharisees did.
talking about, okay? The only break that I see in that, right, is in your church and is in every other cult and sect that has come out of whatever false prophet that has emerged across history claiming otherwise. That's all I
Including all
see
the
in terms of the break
Protestants.
of custody.
Including all the
Where did
reformers
I
and
say that?
Protestants.
I said I identified your church, Jehovah's
No,
Witnesses.
that's
and
the
Islam.
logical conclusion that anybody would make. If you're a Protestant or
No,
reformist,
a
and you broke
logical
away from the
conclusion that
official
anyone would make
churches,
is that the
then you
perversion
no
of the
longer
gospel.
have authority.
Tyler, that's your church. Tyler, that's
No,
your church you're referring to.
It's not just me. This is all the Catholics and all the Greeks and all the
well,
other things.
am
say
I
to you guys
arguing
as
that,
well.
Tyler? Did I use the word Catholics, Greeks, or Protestants in what I
It
just said?
doesn't matter. It is either incorrect.
You're not
or correct.
understanding the
It doesn't matter
argument,
what
Tyler.
you said.
Tyler, okay, with the Catholicism and with
You're
let me
making
dumb
okay.
it-
I'll
Tyler,
still
I'm
man
gonna
your
dumb it
argument.
down to
You tell me if
Tyler,
I'm correct
gonna
on what
dumb
you're
it-
saying,
no,
so I can
Tyler,
see if
I'm
I
gonna dumb
understand it.
I'm going to dumb it down real good for you. Okay, to make it very easy for you. I'm going to make it in bite-sized chunks for you. Okay.
No one's gonna.
In terms of hold
like
on, Tyler. In terms of Catholicism, in terms of general Protestantism that we have it today, as far as general, evangelicalism is concerned, okay, and Greek Orthodoxy is concerned, as far as the fundamentals are concerned, okay, with the gospel and what constitutes the gospel, who Jesus is, all
what
that
are
kind of
those
stuff.
fundamentals?
Let me just finish, Tyler, my point. We're
Okay.
completely aligned on those, okay, as far as the fundamentals are concerned, okay? So
Like
I have
what
no
fundamentals?
issue, Tyler, let me put it to you like this.
I know, but
Okay?
those are really
I have
important.
no
What are the
issue.
fundamentals?
I have no issue with calling members of the Catholic Church Christian. Same lens I would apply to Greek Orthodoxy, and same lens I would apply to the Protestants.
Because of
The
what?
Tyler, the only people I wouldn't apply the word Christian to are Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, and every other sect and cult that has emerged across history because of how far of a deviation their false prophets created by the false theologies that they introduced through complete and utter satanic heresy. That's my definition.
So there is no one truth. There's just partial truths, and then
there's
then
not one
the truth
partial
isn't
truth. The
too far.
gospel has been preserved, Tyler. This is the
I'm
whole
sorry,
point. Of the chain of
Adam. I
custody.
think you're a smart guy, but you're not being very logical. In
I
any of
am
these
if
things
you
you're
understand
talking
what the
about.
gospel is, but you don't understand what the gospel is. I just said
I
it's
just asked you to
preserved.
clarify what the fundamentals were, and you won't tell me.
Oh, easy. God is triune, which you don't believe. Okay.
That came
as
at
far as
385. Okay, so
What's
all
that?
the Christians before 385 that didn't believe that were heretics.
well,
Got it.
1 second.
So
They
that
did
means
believe
all
in that.
those people in the 100s
Hold
and
on.
200s
Which
that didn't believe in
church fathers?
consubstantiation,
Tyler?
they
Let's
go to hell.
Tyler, let's substantiate your
That's
point.
the logical
No, it's not.
conclusion.
Tyler, prove your contradiction. Which church fathers believe that? Prove it.
Are you saying that no
Tyler,
church
prove it.
fathers
No,
believed it?
Tyler, prove it. Which church fathers believe what
It's
you just
very
said?
simple.
Tyler,
Why did
give
they
us
have a
your evidence.
council?
No, Tyler, you
what
said
was
it.
the
You said it.
Nicene Council about, Adam?
You tell
What
me,
was it
Tyler.
about?
What was it about?
To decide, they had a disagreement. One of the big
Who?
disagreements that
Who
they
had a
later
disagreement,
did in
Tyler?
385.
Tyler,
I'm not going to
who?
list all the names. This is the whole point of the council, was to decide if it was homoousia.
Tyler,
or
you even got the
homo-
year wrong.
Usia.
Tyler, you even got the year wrong.
So there's an early 300 one and a late 300 one.
Right.
And
Okay, so it starts when? When does it start?
and one of them was enforced because many of the early people did not believe in it. So at least those are going
Who?
to hell because they didn't
Who?
believe in a triune God.
Who? What are
All
you
the ones
talking
that the
about?
Roman emperor decided to threaten.
But what
and
did
some
they
of them
believe?
didn't-
What was their belief?
Some of
Do
them
you want me to
didn't believe in a
educate you, Tyler, or do you want to
they-
keep talking about something
I've
you don't
heard
know
all the
anything about?
arguments. There was the filioque.
So what are the
There
arguments?
was also the consubstantiation. There was arguments about various other things. The council wasn't just
Are
deciding
you
one
reading
thing.
from
But who,
somewhere?
Tyler? Where are
No,
you?
I'm
like,
not.
Who are you?
I'm not reading
Tyler,
from anything.
Tyler,
This is just
who are you? Tyler, who are you talking about? Which church leaders were in disagreement? I'm still waiting for your answer. Oh, blah, 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 blah. You haven't given us a
Is
single
my
name,
statement
Tyler.
incorrect?
Tyler, it's incorrect.
Adam?
You haven't provided me a single name.
Okay, so there was no disagreement at the councils about
Which?
homoousia.
Who?
Okay, I guess.
Who disagreed?
Man, I thought you guys knew about the councils. I thought you guys knew
Tyler,
the purpose
no,
of the
you're
councils.
presenting your argument, Tyler, and you can't even give us names. That's pathetic. Do you want me to give you the names and educate you, or do you want to keep talking about something you know nothing about?
I do know the
Which
council.
names, Tyler? Names, Tyler. Do you know what the word names means? Can you name anybody?
Never
or are you
answer
just
any of
gonna-
the questions. You talk over and you try
I
to
asked
get
you
those
for
of
names,
authority.
Tyler, and you can't provide a single name, man.
Brother, this is not a good
What
way
was
to
the
have a
first
conversation.
council in the Apostolic Age, right after the Council of Jerusalem?
First council of what?
What was the first council in the Apostolic Age after the Council of Jerusalem? Here it
First
comes.
one.
Yep.
I
First
don't
one.
know.
Well, there you go.
I don't know what the very first.
You don't know, but
was.
yet you want to now
I
claim
know
you're the
about the
expert on
council of
councils, right? You want to now claim you're the expert on
You're
councils.
straw
You haven't
manning
done
me.
with
I
the
never
degree.
said I was an
No,
expert on
dude,
councils.
you're talking about this
You
council like
always
you know
do
everything
this.
about it, and you can't
Aw,
name
man.
a single name, dude,
That's
of
too bad. I thought
anybody
we
in
were
that
gonna have
council
good
or what they
discussions.
believed.
All right.
What was the arguments, Tyler? What did they believe? What was the council about?
As soon as I start talking, you just start talking over me.
I asked you for names, and you still haven't provided a name. Do you have names?
I
Do
asked
your
you a
chat
question
GPT
that
search
you
if you
still
have
haven't
to.
answered.
Tyler, do your chat GPT search if you have to. Or do you want me to tell you? Are you ready for me to tell you?
You don't even answer any of the questions I asked.
I'll tell you what the
I don't-
council is about if you
Even
let
if
me
I needed
if you let
chat
me tell you.
GPT, at least I actually
Tyler,
try to answer.
do you
a
want me
question you
to
asked.
hold on, Tyler? You didn't answer the question.
You-
I asked you to give me
literally
names, and
have
you still haven't
almost
given me
never
names.
answered a single question I've asked.
Tyler,
Adam.
I
Not
asked you to
one.
give me Tyler, Daniel. Didn't I ask him to give me names like 80 million times here, and he hasn't given me a single name as to who he's referring to in these councils and what they were arguing? Daniel, did I not ask him 80 million times for names?
Yeah, you did. I mean, yeah.
Tyler, can you give us names? Yes or no?
I'm not going to sit there and
Tyler,
do this
either you
game
have
where
names. Tyler,
every single thing I sort of present,
Tyler,
you
you're
want me
trying to
pull up
flesh out what this
something for it.
council is about, and you can't even give me a single name of anyone involved. Wow,
Are you
Tyler,
saying
that's a
that
really
it was
informed
not about
position, Tyler.
homoousia? Are you saying
Tyler,
that's what it
who
was
are
not
you
about?
talking about? Which names? What early church fathers are you referring to?
All of the ones at the Council of Nicaea.
What was the
Which we only
main
have a
ones
few of their
involved?
writings.
Tyler, no, there were some main ones that were involved in that council in terms of what was being fleshed
Main
out.
to you doesn't mean they
Not
were
main
main
to me.
at that
Main
time.
to
The point
history
is
if you
that they had a discussion.
Main to history if you bother to read a single book on it.
Answer this question. Did they have a disagreement about
Who
consubstantiation?
did who
or
have a
not?
disagreement? Who?
The Council of Nicaea.
The Council of Nicaea is not a person.
I know it's not a person.
So give me a name then. Who had a disagreement, Tyler? Who are you talking about?
Does it matter? Did they have a
Yes.
disagreement or not?
It does matter.
Name all 300 bishops that were there then for me. Otherwise, I'm not listening to you.
Okay, so do you want
See
me
how
to finally
stupid
tell
that
you?
sounds? That sounds so stupid.
That's not who I'm at. The bishop, 1 second. There were two main bishops. I'm going to dumb
You're
it down.
arbitrarily deciding
okay?
that if I can't name a certain amount of same names that you
No,
think are
I
important,
asked you
that
to
we
name
can't have a
Daniel.
discussion
Hold
about
on,
the
hold
council.
on, Tyler. Daniel, didn't I ask him for the main guys that were involved in that with the main
Yes,
arguments?
you're arbitrarily deciding either
No, I'm
name
not.
these specific
not.
people.
Okay, let me dumb it down for you even further. Dean Dudley has wrote a book on this. He's a historian. He wrote a book
Great.
on the Council of Nicaea.
Appeal to
okay?
authority fallacy again.
1 second. He's an actual historian, a credible historian. Okay, unlike your
Okay.
church leaders. Okay, can
Okay.
you give me, Tyler, a single name of a main leader that was involved in that church in relation to the arguments that were presented at that council?
If I do, will you finally answer the question of what the discussion at the council? Of
Yeah,
Nicaea
if you
was about?
outline to me the main guys and the main arguments, then we can address them.
Well, as far as the arguments go, part of it was the
Who's the
consubstantiation
person? Who's the
of the
person,
Trinity.
Tyler?
I could start naming off fathers, but I don't remember exactly who was where.
So you don't have any. Tyler, just say you don't have any, and I can tell you.
There's Gregory of Nazianz. I don't know when the Cappadocian one, if that was that one or
What
the
on
next
earth
one.
are you talking about, Tyler? You're just demonstrating now you don't even know.
There was, let's see, Athanasius, I think, was there. I don't remember which was it.
You think he was there? He was either there or he wasn't. I mean, Daniel, his argument for the council is someone he thinks was there or he doesn't even know if they were there. And
Have
this
I
is the
not-
basis of his argument.
I mean,
See,
we just
it's
deviated
not the
Tyler,
basis
this
of
is
my
getting
argument.
Tyler,
My
Tyler,
basis
this
of the
is getting
argument
really
was
silly
whether
now.
they had a discussion at
Tyler,
Nicaea
this is
on
get you're
whether
really making yourself look
homoousia.
Tyler, you're making yourself look silly because you're trying to
No,
tell
you're
us what a council
showing-
is about. You can't name a
You're
single
showing
person
that
was
when you
involved.
can't
Tyler.
admit that you disagree with a point, you try to appeal to authority.
No,
every single time.
I appeal to evidence, Tyler. This is what I've been trying to get through to you guys, but you guys don't base anything off evidence. Okay, and this is the problem with your church. You follow blindly what your false
If you
church
think
saying.
that we
don't
don't
test
have
anything.
people that know all of this stuff, like everything that you've ever brought up and then some, go look up Hugh Nibley, go look up any of our scholars or stuff that are from BYU or from scholarship that
I'm
talk
not
about
asking
the
you that.
fathers
I'm
and
asking
about
you
where they
specifically,
coincide
Tyler.
with LDS
Tyler,
beliefs.
I'm asking
there have
you,
been LDS
Tyler,
scholars that have
Tyler,
made the case
Tyler,
that our
I'm
church is
asking
very
you
in line with the early
specifically.
church.
I'm asking you specifically, Tyler, because this is your argument. Okay,
Well,
you're
if
trying
you
to
don't want to have
present
a
to me.
discussion because you think I don't know enough about early fathers, that's fine.
So you
If
don't. Are you admitting
can-
you don't know, and I can educate you?
If
Are you
I don't
humble enough,
need
Tyler, to receive an education? Yes or no?
I am always interested in learning
Okay,
more about
so will
this.
you let
That's
me
why
talk?
I've gone.
Tyler, will you let me talk and I can educate you? Are you ready to humbly
So
receive?
are you inviting?
Tyler,
Let me establish what your point is of this live history, because I thought it was like to have a discussion between different faiths that understand, and then maybe point out like, okay, I believe this and you this, and
no.
this is why I
I'll
think it's
tell you.
wrong or
I'll tell you
right.
my purpose. I'll make my
But if
purpose very clear. No, Tyler, I'll answer that question for you right now.
If that's
okay?
all you want, you should go talk to Robert Boylan that has challenged you for
Tyler,
a debate,
Tyler,
because
nobody
he knows more of this
Yeah,
than
but Tyler,
both you guys combined.
Tyler, nobody has sent me an email to challenge me to a debate. Not one
He put
person
it
has sent
out.
me an email.
I've seen it put out on YouTube.
If
I've
someone
seen
has
it
put it
out
out,
on his
yeah,
site.
but Tyler,
and
if someone
he tagged you.
Tyler,
he tagged
if
you.
no one tagged me either. I was never tagged, so that's not true either. Neither was I tagged, nor was I sent an email. If you're challenging me to a debate, Tyler, when I in a stream
I'm
strictly,
not challenging you to
Tyler,
debate. I was
I'm
trying to
not
have a
saying
discussion
that,
with you.
Tyler. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, if somebody, I'm talking about generally here, is challenging me to a debate, okay? When I've put my email out on stream and they didn't bother to email me, Tyler, that tells you everything you need to know. Okay, my email was made public for any person that wants to debate me, and I didn't receive a single email yet.
So you're saying if he emailed you that you would?
Yeah, exactly. If anybody emails me, I will respond to their email. Absolutely.
But are you interested? What is your purpose and interest in debate? Anyway?
Okay, now I'll answer. Okay, if you're talking about the purpose of the streams, okay, Daniel and I do these, okay, because we believe, okay, as far as if we're focusing on a specific group, whether it's the Mormon Church, Jehovah's Witnesses, or Muslims, right? We believe that they don't know the gospel and they don't know Jesus. Okay, our perspective, okay, is that it is our what's called obligation to try and share with them the gospel if they're willing to listen. Okay, some people come on and they're willing to listen. Other people, like you, Tyler, come on and they don't want to listen. Okay, therefore it creates a discussion like this. Okay. All you had to say, right, and everything that was said there, right, to cut the middleman was, look, Adam, I don't know enough about the Council of Nicaea. Can you tell me a little bit more about it since you've read about it? And I would happily have a conversation with you, but you weren't even humble enough to do that. You wanted.
I told you I didn't know all the fathers. I told you.
So
that
are you
all
ready
I
for me
said
to tell you, Tyler? Are you ready for me to tell you?
But Adam, you asked me the question of.
I
you
asked
guys
you
showed
for a question.
lineage. You guys
No,
presented a
Daniel,
problem of
Daniel,
like a chain of authority.
Daniel, hold on. I want to ask Daniel.
Daniel presented a chain of authority.
Tyler, let Daniel speak. Tyler, Daniel hasn't spoken for a while. Let's let Daniel speak for a second. Daniel, I want to ask you a question, okay? He presented the Council of Nicaea as a position, as an argument for what he's trying to argue for, okay? Now, you have clearly seen, Daniel, from everything that he said. He went as far as to say Athanasius might have been there. I'm not sure if he was there or not, okay? Did he not show clearly that he doesn't know this council and he doesn't know what this council is about, yet he wanted to present it as an argument for his case?
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious that, you were just trying to go on a detour. The actual question here is about the reliability. Adam was talking about the reliability of the early, church fathers. And we need to do a comparison. When you're going to present Joseph Smith coming 18, 19 centuries later against these people, they have more credibility because they have an established connection to the apostles. That's all the chain was showing. And when I asked you the question, there was no response. You went on a tangent. Trinity has nothing to do with what we are discussing here today.
And it was an uninformed tangent because he didn't even know what he was talking about.
Adam,
you were second guessing the council, dude. You were second guessing names that were involved in the council.
I'm not second guessing anything. Why do you try to you accuse
me
of so much that I did not do?
Tyler,
do you know who else is the great accuser?
Tyler, Daniel. Okay, let me ask Daniel again. Daniel, if I tell you someone might have been there, might not have been there, am I second guessing it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
What are you talking about? Bro,
Did you
doing
not say,
horrible
Tyler? Did
straw
you not say
mans. Come on,
Athanasius
bro.
might have been there, might not have been there? We can replay the clip if you want. You're gonna make yourself look very silly in a second if I replay this video when you said
Everything
Athanasius
we talked initially about Adam and Eve, and we were talking about that, and you jumped to a new thing, and then jumped to a new thing, and then jumped to a new thing.
I was
You gish
addressing
galloped from thing to
specifically.
thing to
I
thing
was
without
hold
me
on.
even talking
I
about
was
it.
specifically addressing the issues with your church doctrinally, in contrast to consistently what's taught within the Bible and what the early church leaders taught. Okay, and they were lining up themselves. They were aligning themselves with the biblical data. Okay, and I was using that to demonstrate that there's a clear
Is the
chain
biblical
of
data
custody, as
complete?
Daniel pointed out. Hold on, I was doing that to point out there's a chain of custody within the early church traditions and the early church that line up with what we believe today, consistently with the Bible and what they taught, versus what your church leaders deviated to as a consequence of Joseph Smith's false interpretations. That's what we were demonstrating. Okay, but you weren't listening to the argument. And then the second thing is, if you want us to go through the Council of Nicaea,
You think we haven't heard these arguments before?
Tyler, you don't even. You just
These are the
demonstrated
arguments
you
the
haven't heard them.
Catholics. These
Tyler,
are the arguments that
you just
Catholics and Orthodox make to you, call
Tyler,
you wrong.
Tyler, you just
You're using
demonstrated.
their argument to call me wrong
Tyler,
when they use that argument
No,
to call you
what
wrong.
is their argument, and who are you talking about within their church?
Catholics and
Who
Orthodox claim
specifically?
that they
Give us
have the
one.
apostolic succession, or they have the Pope from the very beginning, and that they have the authority, and you have
That's
no
not.
authority.
That wasn't my argument, and you didn't even hear my argument.
So unless you're Greek Rome, I mean, unless
Tyler,
you're Roman
that's not the-
Catholic or you're Greek
Tyler,
Orthodox,
do
they
we
use
have
the
to- is
same
there something-
argument against
Tyler,
you.
Tyler,
Do they
you
or
have-
do they not? Am
Tyler,
I wrong
is
or
there-
right?
Tyler, do you have an issue or something? Because I've explained to you
Am
3 times
I
our
wrong
position.
or right that they use this
Tyler,
argument against you?
Tyler, you're
Irrelevant
using.
to the-
Wait, Daniel, let's hold on here.
So
He's
you won't
using
even
a
let
trick-
him answer because you
Tyler,
don't, because he'll
no, no.
actually answer my question.
Tyler, I'm using this to get you back to the question that you're running from.
I
Do you want
asked
me
this
to
question way
educate-
before. That's why you
Tyler,
came
no,
up with
my
this.
question. You brought up the Council of Nicaea. Do you want me to educate you on the Council of Nicaea? Or are you going to concede the point that you don't know what you're talking about?
The Council of Nicaea was like the 15th thing we talk about.
You
not
didn't even
the-
know what year
the
it took
initial
place.
things.
You didn't even know what year it took place.
Yes, it's like I said 335 or 25. I can't
It
remember,
wasn't
but
three.
it's somewhere right
It wasn't
there.
3. Yeah, it wasn't 335.
So 325 then, right?
Yeah, it was 325.
Okay. And I think the later one was 382 and then 385. They had another council about in the mid 380s.
Yeah, but what was
does it
the
matter if I
council-
know the exact year? The point is
Okay.
that
The point is, what was the council about, and who were the main actors involved in the council?
I've watched videos on this before. I have not read
Will,
about the
do
council
you
because
want
it's
me to
less
tell
important to
you,
me
Tyler?
than it is
Do
to
you want
you.
me to educate you, Tyler? Are you humble enough for me to educate you on this? Or do
Sure,
you
but
wanna keep-
how does that answer our question?
Okay, because
could.
you brought it up as an argument against the Trinity. Okay.
The thing is, if this is what I came here for, I actually would be excited to listen to you and have me teach you about, because I would
all right,
trust
let me tell
that
you.
you
Okay,
could,
so
could
are
teach
you
me about
are
it.
you gonna stop talking and let me educate you, and then we can go through it together?
Please
Or are you
do.
just
Tell
gonna
me
keep
about the Council of
talking?
Nicaea, because I do want to know. Go for it.
Okay, so in 325, so you know that with every council there was a specific individual that was identified that was bringing in a specific doctrine contrary to what was the consistent position within the church at that time. Okay.
Okay.
So what happens at the Council of Nicaea, right? You've probably heard of a guy called Arius. Okay.
Yes.
What did Arius believe? Okay, let's take it step by step. Okay, this is what happened. Okay.
Well, was this the Arianism and?
Yeah. So what
okay.
exactly? So what is Arianism?
I can't remember exactly what it is. It's like a different, isn't it? Arianism and Thomism are kind of the two big questions at this council. Is that correct?
So Arianism is essentially it's essentially what Jehovah's Witnesses believe today. That's the best way I could dumb it down for you. Okay, he believed that Jesus was created and he was another God separate from
Which
the
we
Father.
don't believe.
Okay, which you don't believe. Okay.
No.
He also believed that Jesus was the Archangel Michael, which I'm assuming you don't believe either. Okay.
No.
No,
No, we believe that Adam was Michael, actually.
Okay. Well,
Did you know that?
I know that, but that's a whole other can of worms.
Okay, but yeah, we believe the Archangel Adam is Michael.
Yeah,
go ahead.
let's stick with this for the moment, okay?
Or Michael's, yeah.
So Arius was putting this position forward strongly in the church, okay, contrary to what the church consistently believed at his time, which is what Athanasius' position was, okay? So Athanasius' position is outlined in a book called On the Incarnation. Anyone can have access to it. It's a PDF available online. And I recommend people go through it. It's quite short. It's only about 90 pages, okay? The early church position, right, at that point was that Jesus was homoousia, right, which was the same substance of the Father, okay? That was the consistent position that had been established at that point, okay? Arius comes along and says, no, it's homoiousia, which is that he's a like substance of the Father, but not the same substance, since he was created by the Father, since that's what the term begotten means. Okay, that was Arian's position. That created a controversy where they had to call a council. Okay, because Arius was going around trying to convince some of the bishops who had already believed, by the way, what Athanasius was believing, and then he tried to create a movement within the early church to change fundamentally what the church had believed up until that point. And therefore, this council was called to try and deal with this controversy. Okay, when the first council concluded, okay, at that point it was Athanasius' position that won out. Okay, and Arius was excommunicated. I don't know if you know this. Okay.
Yeah,
But
I know that there was some others that didn't agree that didn't get there to the council as well. And
okay, but my point is the majority vote in the first council that was called was that yes, Jesus is homoousia, the same substance as the Father. Okay.
Okay.
Contrary to what Arius was saying. Okay. Now Arius, even when he was excommunicated, right, he still kept connections with some of the people in the church. Okay, and what he did from outside externally was he tried to seep his views into some of the church fathers and get them to get him back into the church after he'd been excommunicated. That's when they had a second council that was called later on. Okay, and it was at that council where the position was reversed. Okay, they started to believe what Arius said. Okay, and what the council was, those three councils that you referred to across those couple of decades, it was a back and forth between Arius and Athanasius to establish whether it was homoousia or homoiousia. Now, just so you know, it even got to the point where Athanasius himself was excommunicated. This is when Arius when he got the majority position, okay? But in the end, what ended up happening, in the end, they came to their senses. They went back to the original position, which was established in the first council, which is no, it is homoousia, and that is the position. And then it's alleged that Arius was assassinated because of the fact he was viewed as a threat to the church, okay? Because of what he was espousing, okay? That's what the council was about, okay? But the point is that initially speaking, when the council started, even before the council started, all the church leaders were in agreement until this heretic came along.
No, I disagree with you there.
It was Tyler. It was voted.
That they always
I'm not assuming, Tyler. I'm giving you what the vote was. It was a majority vote in the first council that was called.
Again, though, majority is not everyone. So there's already a disagreement.
They're out of the 300. I think it was something like 277 agreed.
Okay.
That it was homoousia. Okay,
but you have some that are disagreeing.
Hold on. Yeah, but that's because...
And you have some that weren't there that also disagreed that didn't make it to the
ones that were
council.
disagreeing were only disagreeing because Arius had convinced them of an alternative position. They weren't disagreeing up until Arius came along. It was Arius who came up and then brought in this theology that was alternative, okay, that led to some of them changing their position, okay? But my point is, before the council was called, they were uniform on that. Okay, it wasn't until Arius came along that there began these internal discussions and this internal back and forth, okay? But this is my point. You can see all this outline in, as Daniel pointed out, the chain of custody, which is we have access to their letters, what they taught and what they believed. The consistent position
I know
the consistent position even prior to the council of what's called Nicaea, and it can be demonstrated to you, is that God was triune. Okay, that's consistent. So even in the writings of Tertullian, he talks about it. Even in the writings of Irenaeus, he talks about God as being triune. Okay, this goes back to the 2nd century. Okay, this isn't just unique to the Council of Nicaea. Okay, Mormons for some reason try and make the same argument.
But Adam, when they say triune, they're not. When they talk about God, Father, and the Holy Spirit, they're not. Every of those people that talk about, like you say, triune or Trinity or anything, that word didn't even come till later. But my point is that even when they talk about that,
wait, when did it come? When did the term come? Hold on, when did the term Trinity come?
I looked it up recently, and I think it was like 120 or 140 or something is where the first record of like Trinity was actually said.
So early 2nd century.
Yes, but
you
even
understand.
Then,
but hold on, you understand.
Even that doesn't
Tyler,
necessarily mean.
Tyler,
go ahead.
Just because the term didn't exist in a concrete form doesn't mean that that's
right.
not what they believe.
And also just because the term existed doesn't mean that they believe that they were of one or consubstantial.
Yeah.
It also
so how do we? This is the thing, Tyler. How do we know that? We know that if we actually bother to read the writings and see what they believe, which is the thing you haven't done. Okay,
but give me an apostle. Give me an apostle that says that's so important. Why is it not in the scriptures?
Okay, I'm going to try and help you. Okay, will you do a bit of honest research by yourself?
I love doing research. I do it all the time.
So there's a book by. I'm going to give you. All right, I'm going to give you something. Okay. There's another one by another guy. I'm going to get you in a second, but you can just as a starting point. Okay.
But you understand where I'm coming from as far as I have had personal experiences where I believe in the restoration. So for me,
I don't care. I honestly don't care.
I know you don't. I know you don't. But for me to believe some scholar who is a person who's just using.
No, I'm asking you to believe evidence, Tyler. I'm asking you to believe evidence. I'm not talking about some scholar.
If you don't want to believe evidence, tons of evidence for the restoration.
What's the evidence? And why is it disregarded by scholarship?
why was Christianity disregarded by all those people? Why was Christ
No,
disregarded by
no,
the
it's not though, Tyler.
Pharisees?
Which scholars disregarded it as far as modern scholars?
Again, it's just back and forth. Like,
No, these are important questions. If you're going to make a statement, I'm going to ask you for evidence.
They are important
Woo!
questions. That's why I'm here having the discussion. Otherwise, I wouldn't. But
okay, I'm putting it in the private chat for you anyway, just so you can have access. The point is, the Bible is, as you know, within academia, is an ancient historical record. That's not something that's up for discussion.
The Bible is battleground for everybody.
I'm not talking about some subjective.
I'm trying to give context.
Yeah, but I'm saying you do understand that within academia, the Bible is accepted as a genuine ancient historical record, right? You accept that?
What do you mean by genuine ancient historical record? Is there have some historical record in it? Yes.
Is it
infallible? No.
Tyler,
do you believe it's fallible or infallible?
Tyler, any book, you're changing the question. Any book which predates the 5th century AD, okay, if we talk about the antiquity period, okay, is regarded as an ancient historical record, okay? Any book which predates the 5th century AD, okay? That's the age cutoff for the different ages. Like you have the Age of Enlightenment, all that kind of stuff. If you're talking about the antiquity period and the ancient antiquity period, any book which predates the 5th century AD is regarded within academia as an ancient historical record. Okay, because it goes back to the ancient world. That's the time period for the ancient world. The Bible falls into that. Therefore, it's regarded as an ancient historical record. The other thing, and this is where I was trying to lead this to, okay, is that your book, right, your Book of Mormon claims to be an ancient historical record, yet there's not one scholar who agrees.
That's not true. Okay,
give me one non-LDS scholar who agrees that it's an ancient historical record.
Non-LDS scholar?
Yeah,
usually if they believe it. Well, some of them think it's historical somewhat, but if they actually believe that it's supernatural,
give me the names,
then they would be LDS.
Tyler, give me the names, man. Don't just say some of them. Some of them.
I had a Greek Orthodox, former Greek Orthodox priest recently that believes that the Book of Mormon is true, but he's
Tyler, did you hear my question? Did you hear my question?
What?
I'll repeat. Yeah, what? I'll repeat it one more time. Can you give me one non-LDS scholar who agrees that the Book of Mormon is an ancient historical record?
That's like me saying to you, give me one Pharisee that believes that Christ is the Savior.
What?
That's the same thing.
That's not
someone that doesn't believe in something.
1 second. You're conflating a historical argument with a spiritual argument. How is that the same thing?
Have you looked into
the
Hebraisms in the Book of Mormon?
Tyler,
no, I'm serious.
Tyler, do you know
don't believe it, but
Tyler,
have you looked into
Tyler, it? You're trying to change the question. Tyler, do you know the difference between, and we have to wrap up now.
You're asking me, you're saying, Tyler, give me an atheist that believes that Jesus is the Christ.
Tyler,
that's what you're asking.
Tyler, that's not what I'm asking.
It's the same correlation.
Will I flesh out when you let me and not interrupt me?
All right, go for it.
Do you know the difference between a spiritual argument and a historical argument?
Yes.
What's the difference?
One's spiritual, one's historical. One's more temporal, one's spiritual. What do you mean?
In practice, how does that look?
Okay, so are you trying to, let me see if I can understand what you're saying. So are you saying because there might be, like Bart Ehrman, for example, is an atheist, but he believes that the Bible is sort of an ancient historical record? Is that what you're saying?
Hold on, he doesn't sort of believe that. He believes that.
He believes some of it is correct as historical.
I didn't say that. He believes it's an ancient record. There's no debate there. Okay, Bart Ehrman believes it's an ancient historical record.
But he doesn't believe that all of its claims or even the things that are in it are true. He only believes.
But it doesn't matter. It's an ancient historical record. He believes that.
He does not believe that Genesis is historical. You realize that, right?
No, you don't understand what we mean by ancient historical record within academia. This is your problem. Okay, in terms of. 1 second. In terms of the ancient world, okay, it's accepted within scholarship, okay, that generally how authors wrote during that time was they would combine history with myth, okay? Mythos, right, was infused with the historical narrative, okay? That's how they wrote during that time. But it doesn't change the fact that they're regarded as ancient historical sources, okay? Now, the level of validity of those sources is a different question. Okay, in terms of how valid they are. That's the thing that's internally critiqued. But whether they're an ancient historical record or not is not up for dispute within scholarship. The Bible dates to what time period? Okay, if you're talking about the New Testament, first century AD. If you're talking about the Old Testament, you're going back to the BC period. Okay, so you're talking about collectively.
Yeah, but you're asking a non-secular question. Old,
okay? So what I'm saying, no, Tyler, let me finish fleshing out the point for you. What I'm saying is, within scholarship, there's no argument here.
I understand now what you're asking.
It's an ancient record. Okay,
I
whether
understand
you
now
like,
what you're asking.
whether you want to admit it or not, it's an ancient record according to scholarship. I'm asking you for one scholar who admits the same about your Book of Mormon that isn't LDS.
Okay, but Adam, I understand what you're asking, but it's a non sequitur. Let me explain
How?
why.
I'm asking for a historical.
Because the Bible is looked at as historical record even by atheists and other people like that because of what you're saying. There's like a track, they're tracing records.
Exactly.
There's
so where is it for
sections,
the
like
Book
that.
of Mormon? Where is it for the Book of Mormon? Because the Book of Mormon claims
we don't have that, and you know that. We have it from divine revelation from
no,
the
it claims to be an ancient
so in
historical
that
record,
aspect,
detailing accurately historical
it does
events.
claim that. You're
Why
right.
can't it be proved? Why can't it be proved historically?
You are correct that it claims to be a historical
Yeah,
record.
and why can't
but
it be
it doesn't
proved?
have the same paper trail that the Bible does. You're correct in
No,
that.
it
That's
outlines.
What you're asking me, then you're correct.
Hold on, it gives a paper trail. Do you understand what an internal critique is?
Are you talking about the Book of Mormon or the Bible gives a paper trail?
I'm talking about the Book of Mormon.
No, it doesn't give a paper trail because there is no paper trail.
Dude,
because it's plates.
Do you know
it's golden plates? The paper trail was
Dude,
the
I'm not
plates that
asking
Joseph
you
had.
about that. I'm not asking about that. I'm asking about what's called internal critique or internal evidence. Do you know what that is?
Yes. So now ask your question now that we've established that it's not an ancient historical record in the same way the Bible is. I agree that that's true, but it does claim to be an ancient
That's not my argument.
record.
My argument is it's not an ancient historical record at all. It's a fabrication of Joseph's mind. That's my argument.
I know you claim
and that's scholarship's argument.
So what is your question? I know you believe that. What's your question?
Yeah, and that's what scholarship believes as well, based on evidence. Anyway,
good. That's true. So what's your question?
Why don't you accept the implication of that then? Why are you still LDS if scholarship is because evidence your text is false?
Because a lot of those same historians don't believe in the claims of Jesus Christ, but you believe in Jesus Christ.
You just did exactly the thing I told you not to
believe
do,
in the Bible. I believe in the Book of Mormon on faith.
Spiritual with historical, Tyler. Do you not know the difference between spiritual and historical? I just gave you the premise, Tyler, and you're conflating.
You don't believe in your church because of historical records.
Who said I don't believe in my church? What are you talking about? And again, you're changing the question, Tyler. You're changing the question to get away from the question you're uncomfortable to answer, which is your church and your book.
No, you're asking me a question.
Tyler.
You're asking me a question that you won't answer.
No, I asked you a question about the Book of Mormon. I asked you a question about the Book of Mormon.
You have to answer
Tyler,
the same
my
question
came first. My question came first,
and I'll answer it.
Okay,
I believe it by faith.
So you do accept, based on evidence, it can't be proven to be an ancient historical record?
No, I believe there's evidence. There are 22 different types of Hebraic
and
why is that
evidence rejected by scholars? Why is that evidence rejected by scholars, by non-LDS scholars? Why is it rejected?
Because they're unbelievers. The same reason the white atheists don't believe in Christ resurrected.
You just said it's evidence. You understand that if it's concrete, tangible evidence, they don't reject it just because.
Where is the concrete, tangible evidence that Jesus is God and that He resurrected?
You just did exactly the thing I told you not to do, Tyler.
You're asking me a question about faith, and then you're acting as an atheist, and then turn around and not answering the question.
Tyler, you just conflated
you're
again.
Being disingenuous.
Two categories. No, I'm not.
You are being disingenuous because you asked a question. How can you believe something only on faith?
I'm being academic with you. You're conflating history.
You're asking me to be faithful. In an academic way, and then not turning around and answering the same question.
Tyler, when your text makes clear historical claims, okay?
Right.
And gives,
like
and
about Nahum. Have you looked into Nahum?
Hold on. Who gives archaeological claims, okay?
Have you looked into Nahum?
Cultural claims, okay? Why is it that there's no evidence within that? Okay,
there is evidence.
Okay, why don't scholars acknowledge it then, non-LDS scholars?
Some do that there's been evidence.
Name them. Name the ones that do. Name the non-LDS that do.
I'd have to go find a list. I've read some of them before.
They don't exist,
bro. I don't carry lists with me.
You're just conceding the argument. You know they don't exist.
They do.
Well, go find them. Go find them and come back. I'll be happily wait here. I'll give you 20 minutes.
When we come back, or if you want, I can send you people that have looked at the historical claims of the Book of Mormon.
Yeah, and I want to see in wording from non-LDS credible scholars
you show me atheists. As soon as you show me atheists that believe that Christ is God, and then I will show you where all my faith claims are proved by academic scholarship.
Tyler, that's a spiritual claim. I'm not talking about spiritual claims. I'm talking about historical claims. You're conflating the two categories again. You don't seem to see the difference. You have to create this argument.
Are you saying that there are
on a historical basis, you have no argument?
Are you saying that there are no people in the Americas that came from the Nephites and Lamanites?
I'm saying, give me a non-LDS scholar who confirms
in the Book of Mormon. In the Book of Mormon, it talks about them leaving from Jerusalem. Are you saying that Jerusalem doesn't exist?
Look, Tyler. I'm not talking about that.
Jerusalem exist?
Tyler, give me a non-LDS scholar who affirms your book.
There are many non-LDS scholars that say that.
I'm still waiting for the names, Tyler. Still waiting for the names here.
Are you saying Jerusalem doesn't exist? Because the
Tyler,
Jerusalem.
that's not what I asked. I said non-LDS scholars who affirm your book.
You're asking me for.
You're trying to run from the argument, Tyler.
Bible. I'm not. You're
okay. Well, then give me the non-LDS scholars that affirm your book. And if you don't have them, we can move to the Book of Abraham.
The Book of Mormon beliefs are faith; they're spiritual.
So
the historical aspect
blind,
of the only
blind circular religion, blind circular faith is your religion, and you can't see the red flag in that, Tyler.
They found many of the things that are in the Book of Mormon in the Americas.
Which non-LDS scholars are affirming this? And then affirm that the book is
every archaeologist that's found something that is correct inside the Book of Mormon, whether they're LDS or not, is still
give me the non-LDS ones that have affirmed your book on the basis of this evidence.
It's not about affirming the book. It's the same way that the Book of Mormon, the Bible is claimed to be a historical book because of a trail of paperwork and because many of the places.
It's an ancient historical record from an ancient period. Your book claims to be the same, but can't prove itself based on evidence, whether it be external or internal. And I asked you for the scholars to affirm it, and you can't give me any, Tyler.
Tell me where there's non-Christian scholars that say that the flood happened.
Tyler, that's not the question. You didn't hear what I said.
It's the same thing, because you're saying the Bible is a historical record.
Okay, so scholars don't believe. Hold on, Tyler. The scholars don't believe that the Bible is an ancient historical record from
how much of the Book of Mormon?
They don't believe it's a 2,000-plus-year-old text. Do they,
how much of the Book of Mormon do I have to prove for you to believe that it's an ancient historical text? How much?
I'll put it to you like this, right? Okay, I will go to an LDS temple, right? Right, like as soon as you do this, and I would get baptized, right? Okay. If you can provide me with non-LDS scholars who affirm that the Book of Mormon is an ancient historical record and affirm that the Book of Abraham is an accurate translation of ancient Egyptian papyri, if you can do that, I'll go down and take my baptism.
If you want to look at the first part of the Book of Mormon, it starts in Jerusalem. That's been affirmed to exist. It talks about the disagreement.
Tyler, which scholars? Tyler, which scholars? Which scholars, Tyler? You didn't hear my question. I didn't ask you for your narrative.
You don't even need scholars. This is general knowledge.
I'm not asking about your general knowledge. I want scholars, Tyler.
Okay. Does Nahum? Let me show you where Nahum exists in scholarship, I guess you could say, or archaeology,
Tyler,
or whatever you want to say.
I want non-LDS.
And then we can show that Nahum was not known before.
I want non-LDS scholars affirming your book in writing, if you can give it to me. So give me a non-LDS scholar who says this historical point demonstrates that the Book of Mormon is in fact.
You're arguing like an atheist, and you're not an atheist.
Dude, I'm not arguing like an atheist. I'm giving you an objective way to argue your text. And the thing is, if you applied the lens that I'm applying...
There is no such thing as objectivity when it comes to Scripture. If you
applied the lens that I'm applying, you'd leave your church immediately. You just won't do it because you see the issue.
And that's why there's so many atheists, is because they apply the same lens you're applying to belief in God in general, and then they
what's my lens, Tyler? What's my lens? My lens is
that
evidence.
It has to that every claim and every sort of text and everything has to be historically proven. Which a lot of the Old Testament is not historically proven.
Tyler, that's not the claim, and you don't get it. What I'm saying
the claim you're making.
There's claims that certain texts make that are historically verifiable. Right,
because
they
like
don't.
Jerusalem
they're
exists.
not.
The Book of Mormon
hold
talks
on,
about
Tyler. It's not in relation to spiritual claims. It's in relation to specific historical claims that can be demonstrated externally and internally.
Were there people that left Jerusalem?
Tyler,
like it says.
Give me the non-LDS scholars that affirm it, if they exist.
There are some that affirm that.
I'm still waiting for the names. You keep telling me there's some, and I'm still waiting for the names.
Like this is. It doesn't make any sense because you're looking.
If you don't have the scholars,
you're saying
Tyler,
you want to collect.
Tyler, if you don't have the scholars, will we move to the Book of Abraham? If you don't have the scholars,
we don't have.
It's going to get worse for you when we go to the Book of Abraham.
No, we don't have. We don't have all the papyri from the Book of Abraham. We don't have it. So how could you possibly know what it was translated?
Who argues that from the non-LDS side?
There is a record. You understand that all of our records, all of those things are produced by LDS people. Like
Tyler,
whether it's the Book of Abraham, whether it's the journal entries.
Tyler, every non-LDS person, right, that has looked at the Book of Abraham.
Eventually, you have to use faith.
What conclusion have they come? Tyler, what conclusion has every non-LDS person come to when they've looked at the Book of Abraham?
That they don't know how Joseph Smith did it.
Who said that? Who wrote that down, Tyler? Tyler, who said, "Oh, we don't know how he did it. There's a mystery around this. This is definitely from God." I'd love to know the scholar that wrote that.
You know, one uniform thing about scholars and about archaeology and everything is that they're constantly disproven. the more and more information comes out,
Sorry,
you find
Tyler.
out that they're wrong.
This position within scholarship goes way, way back as far as the book of
If I
Abraham.
argued like you're arguing to me about your beliefs, you would look foolish.
No, because my beliefs are consistent, Tyler. There's a difference.
Give
They
me
have
one
a
atheist
historical
scholar
reality
that
to them.
says that Christ actually brought people back from the dead and that he
Tyler,
resurrected
you're
from the dead.
again, you're deviating
Give
away
me
from
one
the
scholar.
argument.
No,
Tyler,
I will join
don't-
your
hold on.
church. You
Tyler,
prove to me
Tyler,
where atheist
Tyler,
scholars.
Tyler,
No, if I do the same thing to you,
Tyler,
see,
no,
you see the
it
difference?
doesn't. Tyler, you're conflating spiritual with historical again. You're doing the very thing I told you not to do. You don't see the contradiction there. They're two separate arguments. You're arguing for something that isn't related to what I'm asking. Okay, I'm asking you for historically verifiable information. And
We have 11 affidavits, written witnesses that saw the golden plates. That is historical witness for.
So which
Book of
non-LDS
Mormon.
scholars affirm that? Who affirm that this is genuine? That this is authentic?
Tell me which.
Tyler, you can't answer my
scholars-
question with a question, Tyler. Come on, give me a
I am
direct
because
answer,
I'm showing
Tyler.
you. I'm showing you're not being.
I am
fair
because
to
I'm
each
asking
side.
you for something.
If
which
I
is
said,
historically
if I asked
verifiable.
you, show me any atheist scholars that said that believe that Paul had the actual experience on the road to Damascus and saw Jesus Christ, you couldn't prove that. could you?
Tyler, you're asking
prove
me
that?
for. Tyler, you're asking me
See,
for.
you won't ever answer the same
Tyler,
question you're
I am
asking
answering
me.
you, Tyler, but you're not listening to my answer. Every time I give you the same answer, you don't hear it. Okay, you're conflating spiritual with historically verifiable. Okay, those are two separate things. Okay, metaphysical and
The
physical are
whole
two
Book of
separate
Mormon is a
things.
spiritual thing, and so
So
is
there
the Book
isn't
of
one
Abraham.
historical claim in the Book of Mormon.
There are historical things like the fact
yes,
that
so there
Nahum
are. Now,
exists, that
Tyler,
Jerusalem
Tyler,
exists, that the Middle East
Tyler,
exists, that
hold
the New
on, Tyler.
Americas
So,
exist, that
Tyler,
they had
Tyler,
cement there that they found later, that they had horses that they found later, that they had silver, they had metal weapons that have been found by archaeologists.
Tyler, relax.
Okay.
Calm down. I'm asking
Okay.
for the scholars, Tyler, that affirm your position in regards to the Book of Mormon. Okay, the non-LDS scholars.
You're doing special pleading. You're creating
No, I'm
special
not.
classes.
I'm just
The
asking
Book
you
of
for
Mormon,
evidence, Tyler.
the Book of Mormon claims historical places that are verifiable.
Okay, now
not
give me
every
scholars
event.
that
Not
affirm-
every event.
give
You're
me,
right. Not every
Tyler.
event in the Book of Mormon can be historically accurately showed by non-LDS scholars. But that's the same thing with the Bible.
Tyler,
Neither can it in the Bible.
Tyler, let me make it easier for you. Okay, is the consensus within scholarship that the Book of Mormon is a fraudulent text?
Not even that many people even approach it.
Oh,
Like,
there's
not
quite
that
a
much-
few, Tyler. There's quite a few. There's
There
quite
is
a
no-
few that have looked at it.
Some don't even
Okay.
approach it.
There's quite a
You
few
know-
that have looked at it from an archaeological perspective, from a historical perspective, from an Egyptology perspective, Tyler.
Okay.
When it comes to your
so
sources,
let's do
okay?
you. What according to you, what's wrong? What's not historical about the Book of Mormon then?
I'm not, Tyler. That's not my claim. My claim is that scholarship is unanimous on this, and because it's unanimous on this based on the evidence, I don't have to argue anything. They're arguing it for me. Now, if you want to argue against it, it's fine, but you have to prove evidence. So provide me with the non-LDS scholars who affirm it.
I don't care about non-LDS scholars that don't.
So you don't care on
I
their
told you this
evidence.
from the
You
beginning.
don't care on their arguments.
I do, and sometimes we talk about it. We talk about Nahum. We talk about the Hebraisms
Okay,
that are
so
in the
you're
Book of Mormon.
You're conceding the Book of Mormon cannot be
I have
verified by
watched
non-LDS
videos with
scholars.
Hugh
Okay,
Nibley and stuff from the
move
old
to the
time
Book of
where they
Abraham.
had
You've conceded the Book
example
of Mormon. Tyler,
of
you've
this.
conceded the Book of Mormon. Let's go to the Book of Abraham. Can you give me one non-LDS scholar who affirms it as an accurate translation?
There's non-LDS that say that some of the translation on, like, for example, the facsimile that Joseph Smith did is correct. How did he get part of it correct, but not all of it?
Show me the ones that affirm his translation. Show me them.
You can go read Smoot's book, Mulestein's
Smoot.
book.
I
all
said
of these guys.
non-LDS, Tyler. I said non-LDS, Tyler.
It doesn't matter. He points
Tyler,
to the
I said
non-LDS
non-LDS.
ones. So if you want the references, I can give them to you.
Tyler, there's not one non-LDS person that Smoot quotes that says that. Okay, so unless you can give the reference, the direct reference, you don't have a case. So I'll ask the question again. Give me one non-LDS
It
scholar.
doesn't matter to me. It literally does not matter to me.
Okay,
Like,
let me give you some examples. Robert Rittner, what did he say about it?
And the thing is that you give me this challenge, but you won't do this challenge to yourself about all the types of things.
Tyler, you didn't hear the premise. The Bible is, look, you didn't hear the premise.
Do
of
you
the start.
take the Bible on faith or historical analysis by other scholars?
Is the Bible, according to scholarship, 2,000 years plus old? Is it?
What's that? I'm sorry.
Oh gosh, the Bible,
I
Tyler.
didn't hear that
Okay,
part.
within scholarship, right? Is it roughly? If we're talking about the New Testament, we're talking about roughly 2,000 years ago. If we're talking about the Old Testament, more than 2,000 years ago. Is that fair to say, Tyler? According to scholarship,
Yes.
that's how they date it?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so I don't have to argue it as an ancient text. You have to argue the Book of Mormon as an ancient text because it claims to be one, Tyler. That's the point.
You're creating false dichotomies, but that's
Tyler,
fine.
it's not a false dichotomy. It's truth within scholarship. That's how they objectively categorize them. One is categorized as an ancient text. The other self-categorizes itself as an ancient text and can't even demonstrate that by evidence.
You remember the Pharisees, they did the same thing. They said, we have the lineage, we have the
I'm
authority,
not saying
we
that,
have
Tyler.
this,
I'm
we
saying
have
give
the,
me
we
the
have the
evidence, Tyler,
archaeology,
that
we have the
demonstrates your
history.
text is an ancient text,
And
Tyler.
they, and Christ standing in
Tyler,
front of them, they
Tyler,
said, you're wrong, we have
Tyler,
the truth, we have
Tyler,
the
do
people
you
to support
have
it.
a text that proves, do you have a non-LDS scholar that proves that your record is an ancient record as it claims to be? Yes or no?
If you don't have personal experiences with God,
Oh, geez,
you
here we
will
go.
not believe.
So here we go. Back to the
not.
circular reasoning. Back to circular reasoning. You don't want to go to evidence. You want to go to circular reasoning. I have a subjective feeling, therefore it must be
There
true.
are
Here's the problem, Tyler. Tyler, let me outline the issue for you, okay? Muslims claim to have these deep spiritual experiences.
The
Just
issue
like
is
have,
you
Tyler.
believe
Does
in
that make
archaeologists
Islam
more
true?
than you believe in your
Tyler,
own faith.
Tyler,
I
does
don't know
that
if
make
you're
Islam
faithfully
true?
convicted. I thought you
Tyler,
were.
Tyler, does that make Islam true that these people have deep spiritual experiences within Islam?
Does scholarship from Muslims about Muslim stuff, does that make it true?
There's no
Does
scholarship. They all
the
disagree.
fact that Muhammad did exist, Muhammad did exist, does that mean that he was right?
Tyler, do you want to know something funny? The argument I use against you is exactly the same argument I use against Muslims.
And I can use the same argument against you.
No, you can't, because the Bible is an ancient record. Okay, the Quran comes much later and is regarded as a plagiaristic text.
So what if it's an ancient record? It has all kinds of faith claims that aren't ancient records. What does that matter?
It matters
it's intermixed with faith claims, and the faith claims are what matter. The ancient record part matters not.
Tyler, it matters because your text claims to be an ancient record and can't prove itself to be one.
It doesn't matter if it's not. It was in a totally different part of the world that has not been archaeologically researched.
It does matter to me, Tyler, because if it's an ancient record, why are scholarship unanimous on the fact that it isn't?
This argument that the person can't be LDS, like if somehow that somebody goes and does archaeology and they find things that are in the scriptures, I mean in the Book of Mormon, in the New World.
Tyler, which non-LDS
is that true? Did they find it or not? Does it matter if they're LDS or not?
Tyler, give me the names of the non-LDS scholars who affirm your text as an ancient historical record. You're claiming historical claims, Tyler. I'm asking you for evidence. How is me asking for evidence special pleading? Okay, you're typing away. That's
historical evidence does not matter at all. It does not matter.
It does when your text claims to be an ancient historical record, Tyler.
You have almost no historical evidence for all of your faith claims. You have no historical evidence for Moses. You don't have historical evidence.
It has historical in the name, Tyler. This is the point.
Show me where the brass serpent, where the Ark of the Covenant. Show me where any of the faith claims in the Bible are historically from even Christian scholars. Show me where it is.
Tyler,
show me where it is.
Argue it for you again. Okay, you're conflating spiritual with historical.
You're creating a little sliver that you're trying to stay inside of and not admitting all the other stuff.
I'm telling you how academia frames it. If you don't like it, take it up with academia.
I don't care about academia. Academia's been nothing but wrong their entire life.
Tyler, I know you don't, because
you don't either. Because if you did, you wouldn't be a Christian.
How so, Tyler?
If you believe in academia, you would not be a Christian.
Tyler, do they believe my text is an ancient record?
All the secularists scoff at all your beliefs, Adam. Do you believe them or not?
Tyler, I'll ask the question again. According to non-Christian scholars, is the Bible an ancient text? Yes or no?
According to atheists, is Christ God?
Tyler, that's a spiritual claim. I'm not asking you a spiritual question.
Yes, you
I'm asking for a historical question.
The Book of Mormon is a spiritually received
historical, book. Tyler. It claims to be historical.
It does, but not in the same
and where
way
are the scholars that affirm that, Tyler?
Are you saying there's no historical evidence for the Bible? I mean, for the Book of Mormon? Is that what your claim is? Because if I could show you any historical evidence, will you join then? Is that what you're saying?
Tyler, my claim is there's not one non-LDS scholar who affirms the Book of
So
Mormon.
what? So what?
Based on the evidence, Tyler.
So what?
So
show me the evidence for Jesus Christ's resurrection.
Tyler, you're conflating.
Show it to me.
Tyler, you're conflating spiritual historical again. You don't seem to see the difference. You're not seeing the contradiction.
You're asking for a book that is spiritual.
All right, let me break it down for you one more time. Within scholarship,
I know what you're asking, but what you're asking, you're trying to make a narrow category to try to disprove something.
No, it's not my category. It's scholarship's category. If you don't like it, that's on you, man. So in scholarship, okay, the Bible is regarded as an ancient text. I'm saying that the Book of Mormon also claims to be an ancient text, but scholarship regards it as a fraudulent one based on the evidence. What do you do with that as a Mormon?
Show me these.
Tyler, don't
scholars
show
and
me. Address
why
the
it's
point,
fraudulent.
Tyler. You're running from the point. Address the point.
Tell me what's fraudulent about the Book of Mormon. Tell me one thing that's fraudulent about the Book of Mormon.
Oh, Tyler, like as far as scholarship is concerned, they're unanimous on it. Okay, they're unanimous on
from
it.
you. You say you
I don't have to tell you. It's
cite
argued by
scholars or
scholarship.
cite your
Tyler,
ideas of why it's fraudulent.
Tyler, it's argued as what's it called? As not reliable and not historical and fraudulent by scholars. Okay, I can give you a whole host of arguments as to why that is. Okay.
Okay, give me one scholar and let's go through the argument.
Okay. You want me to give you names? I'm going to put them in the chat, and will you go through them?
Prove to me that the Book of Mormon is
no,
fraudulent.
Hold on. I'm going to do you one better, Tyler. I want you to read their works, okay, and then get back to me.
I've seen so many anti-Book of Mormon arguments.
Oh no, this is not anti. This is not anti anything. This is from scholars, okay, that have written copiously on it. Okay.
Okay.
I want you to read their works.
Let's look at one of them.
Okay. I'm going to give you a couple. Okay.
All right.
Let's start with this one. I'm going to put it in the private chat for you, okay? So your homework for the next time you come back is I want you to have read these, okay? And then we can have an actual discussion on what the arguments are, okay? Because if you actually take seriously what they're saying, Tyler, you wouldn't be Mormon, essentially. You would see the contradictions and you'd see the issues.
I can make the same argument to you. You wouldn't.
No, because they believe my text is an ancient text. They don't believe yours is.
That doesn't prove any of the faith claims. That proves zero.
Well, it does.
It
does because your text claims to be an ancient text.
It proves nothing.
It claims to be an ancient text.
Okay, tell me in one way that you believing the Bible's historical record proves all the faith claims of the Bible.
You didn't hear what I said.
No.
I said
you
that
can't answer that question any more than I can answer your question.
Scholarship is unanimous that the Bible is an ancient text. I don't have to argue that.
So what? That doesn't prove any faith claims.
It does,
because zero faith claim.
Well, it means that the validity of the text is far more likely than a text that claims to be historical and ancient and isn't. Okay, because that's what your text claims. Okay. So you can read this one as well.
The funny thing is the Book of Mormon basically proves that the Bible is true.
No, it doesn't.
Sure, it does.
No,
it actually
your doctrines are complete. Your doctrines
verifies many of the claims of the Bible.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
It does.
Your text is a complete perversion.
It claims that Jesus is the Christ. It claims
but
that there were
prophets. You believe, okay, that Jesus is the what's called the brother of Lucifer, okay?
Do you know how many other scriptures have been found? Did you know recently they just found another section of the book of Thomas?
This is the problem, Tyler. Your book and your theology is completely against what the biblical data says, what the fathers thought. So Tyler, hold on, Tyler, are you conceding the fact that the Book of Mormon is not?
No, I'm waiting while you're reading. I'm reaching that up, so we're talking about something else while you read that. So Jonah Barnes recently.
Okay, I've given you a number of sources. Okay, I'm going to start off with 3. I want you to go and read those and then come back to me next week. I put them in the private chat for you. Okay, I want you to take note of those, and then next week you come back, or the week after, however long it takes you, go through them, come back, and then argue your point.
Oh, you're talking about the DNA. Have you not seen the recent DNA?
I'm just giving you 3 to start with. I'm just giving you 3 to start. Yeah, give me the non-LDS scholars.
They're showing that no, this was a non-LDS guy where they're showing that they actually tied
give me the non-LDS. Yeah, Tyler, that's what I want. Back to Tyler, Jewish people. This is what I want you to do, Tyler. This is what I want you to do. I want you to come back with your sources next time to demonstrate that and affirm that text is ancient in the way that it claims to be. Okay. You have time to do it. I've given you 3 sources to start with. Go find your sources that affirm it, and then you can argue your point. Do you want to get to the Book of Abraham, or do you want to get to the theology of Mormonism and how it's
but the last 2 you sent me here are basically just about DNA. What's the first one? Mormons and I'll check out the Michael Coe one, but the other 2, as far as the DNA goes, there was another study recently that was showing, and I'd have to find it. It's been a while.
By non-LDS, that's affirming.
Yes, it was by non-LDS, and it wasn't affirming.
And it states that the Book of Mormon is ancient.
It was a non-LDS expert on DNA that was talking about. Let me explain. It was talking about how they found one of the markers for. And they were saying that they might have to reconsider where they thought that the people came over to the Americas because they were tying it back to the Middle East, which was really interesting. This is just recent, and it's a non-LDS, and they weren't talking about the Book of Mormon or our church at all. It was totally unrelated, and LDS people picked up on it and said, "Look, this might actually show that there is a marker on DNA from people there."
Tyler, if they're not identifying what they're talking about. It
doesn't matter. The evidence shows that there was people tied back to the Middle East, which would verify the Book of Mormon.
It doesn't, Tyler, because
you don't understand. Archaeologists and people don't look at the Book of Mormon and try to prove it. They don't do that.
No, Tyler, if it has claims that can be identified based on evidence, they're happy to concede that. Okay,
You're wrong if you think that they're not
biased. Let me give you an example. Okay, you have, for example, like what's his name? The guy he has a lecture. Oh, someone's after joining in the thing. Who's this guy? I'll bring him on in a second. I'll finish. Okay, Tyler, I'm gonna give you 2 more minutes. Someone else after joining, and then I'll give them some time. Okay.
That's fine.
And then you come back with your research done. Okay. Just give me a second, King Vanquish. I'll bring you on in about 2 minutes. 1 second. I want to get the sources for you. Give me 1 second, Tyler, because I have the sources here. Because I actually went through the effort of writing all these down.
But have you, in the meantime, gone and read any of Muhlestein's or Smoot's work about the explanation for the book
Smoot's
of
an
Abraham?
LDS guy, you know.
They're both Egyptologists.
And Muhlestein is also LDS.
Doctorate Egyptologists.
And they're LDS.
And they're also doctorate Tyler, Egyptologists.
So, in terms of, like, if we talk about the book of Exodus, okay, just for a moment, okay,
yes.
let me use a comparison that you can understand, okay? There's a thing within scholarship called internal evidence, okay? Internal evidence means we internally look at the details of what the story and narrative is talking about and whether that lines up with the period that it's actually addressing, okay? So one example is you have a book by James K. Hoffmeyer. It's called Israel in Egypt, okay? And he identifies the historical context behind the book of Exodus and how it's rooted in an actual true historical narrative, okay? You also have Peter Feynman, who wrote a book called The Exodus, an Egyptian Story. You have Bob Breyer, who has an entire lecture series on this available online for you to watch, okay? This is what I'm trying to get across to you, okay? When it comes to the book of, when it comes to the Book of Mormon and the claims that it makes, you don't have that level of interaction from the scholars that are there.
Of course you don't.
No, but you should, Tyler.
Why would you?
But Tyler, when they look at it, they identify it as fraudulent.
They hardly ever look at it, and when they do,
they do. Tyler, that's not true. They do look at it, and when they look
there have been many people that have, and guess what happened? They joined the church.
No, that's not what happens. Tyler. When the historians,
there's multiple.
Tyler,
there are rabbis that have joined our church that were Jewish.
Tyler, you give me rabbis. I'm not talking about rabbis. I'm talking about actual credible scholars that know.
My point is, and scholars as well. Hugh Nibley, there's a great example of Hugh Nibley.
Give me one modern, credible scholar, right? Credible historian, right? That's a non-Mormon. That when they looked at the Book of Abraham and they wrote about it, they magically became a Mormon.
Well, I was talking about the Book of Mormon and the church in general, but about the Book of Abraham, I don't know.
Well, for both, it's not true. But anyway, that's a separate point.
So look, Tyler, it's pretty short.
Tyler, let's finish here, right? Come back next week or the week after. Have read the sources that I gave you, okay? And then we can take it from there, okay? Because at the moment, your argument, this is my problem, okay? And someone pointed this out in the comments as well, like Tyler. And it was about you, it was about Omner, and it was about the other guy, okay? You both come into this discussion unprepared with any evidence to back up your claims, okay? You're coming here with very, very specific claims, okay? About your
I'm not claiming. I didn't come in to talk about
Tyler. I argued, Tyler, even with Jonah, okay? When I had that discussion with Jonah, I mentioned to Jonah, okay, very clearly that my approach to the Bible, right? Because you have to remember, I wasn't indoctrinated in the church in the way that you were, okay?
You were.
No, I wasn't.
You were.
Tyler, I came from a position of being a non-Christian. I was an agnostic.
So did a lot of LDS people.
Okay. The point is, what I'm saying is my approach,
a faith thing, and then you've been indoctrinated in that faith.
Tyler, my approach to the Bible was from the perspective of someone who was skeptical. Okay, I went to the scholarship to see what the scholarship said and compared it with the text. Okay. If you did that for the Book of Mormon, you'd immediately recognize it for what it is, and you'd walk away from the church.
Bro, you have no idea how many articles I've read on the miraculous stuff that Joseph Smith, there's no way he could have known.
Like by non-LDS scholars, right? By non-LDS scholars, right?
It doesn't matter. You can find, you can do your own research.
Because Tyler,
LDS scholars point out the things, and then you can go verify them yourself. They're not making like faith claims. They're showing Hebrewisms that exist and things like that.
Which non-LDS scholars are affirming that, Tyler?
That there's Hebrewisms in the scriptures? There are non-LDS scholars
in the book, Tyler, in the Book of Mormon, which non-LDS scholars are affirming that?
That there's chiasms, for example? Or Tyler, that there's Hebrew names? Or what? What are you asking? Tyler, there's all kinds of things.
Tyler, which non-LDS scholars are affirming that for the Book of Mormon? Names, Tyler.
Affirm what? Which part? What thing?
Everything that you just said in relation to the Book of Mormon.
I'd have to find you lists.
Well, there you go. That's your homework.
They
man.
do it. They do it. There are
They don't
non-LDS
exist,
scholars
Tyler.
that
But I'm
agree
giving
that's a
you,
thing.
Tyler. They
But
don't
whether
exist. But
that
I'm giving you some
convinces
extra.
them that you can find Hebrewisms, and some people say, well, they'll say things like, well, I don't know how Joseph knew this, or how did Joseph get this, or they
No,
try to
I've
make some
never seen
explanation for it.
Tyler. I've never seen a non-LDS
Well,
writer.
of course
write
you haven't.
what
You haven't.
just
You
said.
haven't investigated it at all.
I have.
You haven't looked at it
but
at all.
Tyler, I have. None of them have said that. Now come back to me and prove me otherwise next week. Our guest is back, Tyler. Let me bring him on because he's been waiting for a
That's
while.
fine. But just so you know, there's
Tyler,
incredible
next week-
evidence that
Tyler,
there's no way
next- yeah.
Joseph Smith could
Will
have
you-
written the Book
Yeah,
of
well,
Mormon.
come back with that evidence next time, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
We'll have
bye-bye.
to do one topic or another because it's like, you know what I mean? If you start
Yeah,
going
but
into that
I
kind
don't
of
mind
stuff,
doing
it's
one
like
topic or
very
another, but make sure
specific.
that when you come with your topic, you have it prepared, okay? All right.
Have
see
a
you,
great
man.
day. We'll
Have
see
a
you
great
later.
day. All the best. Bye-bye. Hello? King Vanquish, is that his name? You're muted. Ah. You're muted, man. I'll give him a couple of minutes to come back. But we'll be wrapping up this discussion soon, in about 5 minutes. I'm going to give King Vanquish about 5 minutes because he's been waiting here a while. But that's if he comes back. King Vanquish, you're muted, man. You need to unmute. Ah. We'll just give him a couple of minutes, guys. King Vanquish, are you there? You need to unmute, man. I don't know what he's doing. I'll give him 1 more minute, 1 to 2 more minutes, and then if he doesn't come back, we'll finish it there for tonight. Okay, you need to King Vanquish. You need to unmute. You're muted at the moment. You're back.
Will you send me that? I didn't get it. I dropped off the thing there. Will you send me that first book you sent? Not the one about the DNA, but the first one. I wanted to look at that. It was
yeah,
like
hold on.
something Michael
hold
Co
on.
or something.
Can you access the private chat there in the because I have you back on stage.
Yeah, it doesn't show
Here,
anymore.
I'll put it here 1 second. I'm gonna put it in again, okay?
That'll work.
And then just copy and paste it.
Okay, sounds good.
Did it appear now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, just take a note of that, okay?
Yep.
All right, see you, man.
Later.
God bless. Bye-bye. You need to unmute. He's just like 1 second he's on, the next second he's off. Yeah, like Icy Noodle, I'll answer the question like this. I hope this makes sense, okay? If the position is objectively true, okay, this is the argument. I don't know why LDS people don't understand this, okay? Non-LDS scholars will agree with the position, okay? There's certain historical claims that are made, for example, biblically, that non-Christian scholars are in complete agreement with, okay? They don't have to be a Christian to agree with it, because based on historical evidence, they can verify it. At least there's enough evidence for them to say, okay, it's true, okay? When it comes to the claims of the Book of Mormon and the Book of Abraham, there's no non-LDS scholar that agrees with them. That's a huge, what's called red flag. That's a massive red flag. And it's something that you guys need to understand the implication of and really, really wrestle with. Because if it's making a precise historical claim and the scholars are in agreement that it's completely false or fraudulent, again, that's something you guys have to consider and start actually looking at the evidence and interacting with it, as opposed to just turning the blinders on and just believing whatever your church leaders tell you. I'm not seeing anything here. We'll give King Vanquish 2 more minutes, and if he doesn't come back in the next 2 minutes, we're going to wrap it up. But I'm interested to see whatever he's trying to, whatever he wants to say. And as well, I just want to say, guys, thank you for joining, and I appreciate the interaction in the chat. As I say, like, just keep the chat respectful, okay? Because if it, like, even for the guests, for me or the guests, if it turns, disrespectful, I'm just gonna ban you, basically. So I'm giving you guys a level of trust by allowing you to comment. But if the comments turn disrespectful, then, as I said, you'll be banned. So, but I do appreciate you guys, tracking with this discussion and interacting with the way you did. And again, I hope there was some benefit to it. I hope you're seeing more of what our argument is, why we have the concerns that we have, and I hope that helps you guys go out and actually think about these things and address them for yourselves. We'll give him 1 more minute. I don't think he's coming back, but we'll give him 1 last minute. Okay. It's looking like he's not going to join back, sadly. I thought for a moment when he joined, I thought he was unmuted, but for some reason he muted and he couldn't unmute, which is a little disappointing. Serious question. Let's wait. I'll give him 30 more seconds and then I'm going to be out of here if he doesn't come back. It's good discussion, though. It was a really good discussion. We had some good guests. Well, one guest, really. But we're going to keep this momentum running week by week. And hopefully we'll we'll keep getting more people to come on. We can have more discussions and then kind of talk through things. Yeah, I don't think he's coming back. Oh well, that's disappointing. Maybe he'll come back next time. I tried to wait as long as I could, but it doesn't seem like he's coming back. So if King Vanquish comes back, maybe next time we can bring him on. But it looks like he's not coming on now. I waited as long as I could. That's a shame. I really wanted to see what he said, because he said in the chat, he said he's not a Mormon. So I was curious. I was thinking, well, if you're not a Mormon, then, you know, what did he want to say? But apparently he can't get back on. All right. Well, I waited as long as I could. Okay, we'll end it there, guys. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. And yeah, we'll keep this rolling. So next Friday, again, look, we normally stream at 7 p.m. Ireland time. Today was a little later for us. We started at 9 because I had something going on. But normally the time will be 7 p.m. So yeah, just keep record of that. Subscribe, and you'll get a notification when we're going live, and we can continue discussions and hopefully bring on other guests. Like, I appreciate Tyler coming on, Omner coming on, but I also want other people to come on as well that we can have discussions with, just for a bit of variety, to get some other perspectives as well. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for staying tuned for so long, and until next week, all the best and God bless.